Lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer.
Good morning, and thank you very much for choosing the Mother World Talk Shows. Elijah and we are live from the studios of Pan-African Television. It's a Saturday morning. I am Senna Nombo, and I welcome you to today's show. Now, we'll start today's show with a conversation around the fact that now, officially, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger have withdrawn from ECOWAS. ECOWAS issued a statement saying all protocols should still be extended to them, which means there is a sense that they still would like to talk about a possible maybe reuniting with them. So we'll start with that, the withdrawal that kicked in this week. And then we'll move to Parliament. The scenes that are unavoidable. Now, 4 MPs have been suspended. A committee set up by the Speaker. Speaker has also asked the Committee of Selection to meet and reconstitute the Appointments Committee. We'll talk about the happenings in Parliament, and then we'll move on to a petition that has been sent to the presidency. The petition is asking for the removal of the chairperson, the deputy chairpersons, and Dr. Apiahene from the Electoral Commission. We'll spend some time on that and conclude with an end to perhaps one of the most litigated prosecutions in recent times. The prosecutions of Dr. Opuni, who is former CEO of the Cocoa Board, and Seydou Agongo, who is a businessman. Well, that's not the only prosecutions that were ended this week. There was also the matter of discontinuance of the appeal at the Supreme Court, which was issued by the Attorney General's Department under Godfrey Adame against the decision of the Court of Appeal to acquit and discharge Dr. Kisala Tofoson's Finance Minister, now Richard Jakpa. There was also a discontinuation and withdrawal of the charges against the man who is now being nominated to the position of the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama. Well, but we'll focus on the one about Seydou Agongo and Dr. Opuni. So those are the issues we'll be discussing this morning. Join me in the studio to discuss the topics that we've put forward this morning. Komeko Isbajina, the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And of course, always, like I say, always exciting to him in the morning. And Solomon Owusu is a member of the Movement for Change. We're also joined by a member of the National Democratic Congress, a man who is certified to practice as a lawyer in both the UK and Ghana. Haven't seen him this year. Hamza Soini, good morning.
Good morning.
And we are expecting Minister Designate for Environment, Science and Technology. It's not been approved yet. It's not been approved yet. Honorable, Comrade Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, I always made that mistake, who will be joining us to complete the panel, was also at the vetting this week. So that's the panel that we're going with this morning to discuss the issues. And of course, we have to start with the issue of Burkina Faso. But it's important that you contribute to the show. Use the number that we have assigned. If you are on Facebook, Pan-African Television, use the comment section. If you're on YouTube, Pan-African Television, use the comment section. I'll read those comments as we go along the show. Your contributions are very, very, very important. So we start with the issue of Burkina Faso, Niger, withdrawal from ECOWAS, official withdrawal now. And I'll start with Hamza Sohini. We'll just take some brief comments before we move to Parliament on this one. Hamza, good morning.
First of all, good morning to you and your production team, and my senior colleague panelists on the show, and of course our cherished viewers out there. Senna, you see, I have always been reluctant discussing issues of our regional bodies in Africa, largely because of the fact that I share in the view of Osagyefo for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, that we got our orientation wrong from the onset. And so most of what is happening now was clearly expected and anticipated, unfortunately. And if you are familiar with his 1963 speech in Addis Ababa, he stated it emphatically that if we failed then to take the needed measures and dwell on regional integration, then there would be the consequence of us having failed the entire African continent. And that is clearly what is happening. And just permit me to read a portion of his introductory remarks at the said event. He said, the increase in our number in this short space of time is open testimony to the indomitable and irresistible surge of our people for independence. It is also a token of the revolutionary speed we must fall. It is also a token of the revolutionary speed of world events in the latter half of this century. In the task which is before us of unifying our continent, we must fall in with that pace or be left behind. Senna, clearly, the creation of ECOWAS in the first place was anticipated, like I indicated. And we all know that irrespective of the novelty of the idea, it only sought to strengthen the divisive nature of our continent, where we are now building regional blocks to pursue sectional interests rather than the African project. And if you look at even the European Union, the example is there. Their creation of EU, we are all familiar with the challenges they are faced with even in contemporary times, where states are breaking away. So if you look at the architecture, for me it is a bit problematic. Unfortunately, the weaknesses of ECOWAS has been manifested clearly by the current position of the Sahel states and the failure of that regional bloc and architecture to contain that situation. You know that this is not the first time ECOWAS is recording a breakaway. So the floodgates have been opened, especially with these three states. But nonetheless, one cannot run any meaningful commentary on this without appreciating the sincere efforts of African leaders like His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Because we all know that even upon assumption of office, he gave a strong signal of his commitment to working with all African heads of states. And that was what resulted in the first place in the invitation of leaders of the Sahel states to his inauguration. Immediately after, he did not stop there. He also demonstrated, even preceding his inauguration, we saw his trips outside his country. It was not to any Western bloc. It was to the African heads of states. And I believe that was where the discussion started. And it sent a strong signal of Pan-Africanism and his commitment to that cause. I know that is likely to have a blowback in terms of our relationship with the Western bloc. But clearly, these are some of the signals we need as a continent. And if we are able to dwell and take advantage of such signals and concretize it, then once again, maybe, just maybe, as a bloc, we may begin to hope that in the near future we can fashion out a continent that is workable in the African interest and a government that can deliver for the entire African continent. But until that is done, we would once again miss the opportunity like they did in Addis Ababa. And for me, that is the broader concern. It is not just about Sahel states breaking away. It sends a signal of how disintegrated we continue to be and the urgent need for us to come together as an African continent to see how we can address some of these challenges. So we can decide to run any form of commentary we want about the breakaway. But the reality is that there's the need for us to go back to the drawing board. And I've always said that, look, times are changing. And we must begin to reflect on other workable measures. If you are not careful, the only way, I hate to predict it, but the only way that we may begin to have discussions about a true African government would be a violent eruption within the African continent. That would force us to that point, which we must avoid. Because we saw it happen when the United States was threatened about the survival of the Union. We could be faced with such an event if indeed we fail to act. So, Senna, like I indicated, the likes of President Mahama, maybe we need a chunk of other leaders like that, because we saw its manifestation for the first time. And he just didn't give a strong signal by going to meet the African heads of states. Remember that in his appointments, one of the first appointments made by President Mahama is an envoy to the Sahel states, in the person of the most respected Larry Bivululati. Clearly, this is a man who has shown that he's ready to engage his brothers in Africa for us to find an amicable solution. And let me grudgingly commend ECOWAS in a way, though it's belated, in terms of the nature of how they are trying to work out the modalities for the breakaway. Because they have indicated strongly that most of the agreements will still stand until such a time that these states are able to move on their own. That is commendable. But these are steps that should have been taken earlier in the first place to prevent the breakaway. So like I have indicated, some of us are young, but reading the history of Africa, one cannot help but to be disappointed in the kind of democracies that we have fashioned out, in the kind of economic models that we have inherited. And as far as we continue to dwell on those economic models and democracies, we should expect to still be under the influence of our Western partners. And I think that the appropriate word is not to even describe them as partners. Unfortunately, the reality is to describe them as well, maybe to be diplomatic, neo-colonialists. But the reality is that we are still under their rule. And you cannot simply put that blame on them. Because if we do that self-introspection, we would all accept that Africa and its leadership played an instrumental role in the continued subjection to colonial authority. And that is where the issues are. So it goes beyond just a breakaway of Sahel states. Today, even the African Union is struggling. And you know that when it comes to real authority, the African Union lacks real authority even within African affairs. And these are some of the things we should be talking about. So until you have a workable architecture, we would continue to dwell on ideologies of Pan-Africanism, socialism, but in reality, it will be dreams that we will die with. But as for the practicability, it will remain an illusion. So the time has come for us to demonstrate our seriousness and our commitment to action by first of all going back to the drawing board and demanding a restructuring of the African Union. I am not interested in any bloc called the Economic Community of West African States. It further broadens division in terms of our regional integration as a continent. I am not interested in that. I'm not interested in the regional blocs. I'm interested in an African Union that can have an arm specifically mandated to deal with our economic integration, where we can boast of a single currency, where we can begin to break away or to take away, if you like, immigration points of entry to other African states. These are things we should be working on. And Nkrumah intimated that in Addis Ababa when he called for a union of foreign affairs ministers to work out that modalities where we can take away the barriers, the regional barriers, and get together and fashion out an African diplomatic system that could help salvage the African continent. But today, Economic Community of West African States will only be interested in the economic objectives of West African states. West Africa is not Africa. It is only part of the African Union. So we must be careful and we must continue to tread cautiously. But as a young person, I have my doubts. Not just because we are not capable of uniting as a continent, but the steps being taken clearly shows that we are not ready. And you see, our political system also helps in reinforcing and killing the objective and killing the incentive for young people to fight for African Union. Because from the word go, either from your primary school to junior high school to secondary school, you are taught about state sovereignty. That deals specifically with your country. And so by the time you get to university, your orientation would have been worked on, and your commitment and loyalty would have been to your state. That is the kind of danger that we are faced with. And this is a relic of the colonial system. So if indeed we are committed and we've agreed that the current generation, they have lost that fight, there is the need for us to begin to look at our educational institutions and redesign the core structure. And begin to add Pan-Africanism, even from the word go, and how we can come together and work out acceptable modalities to get Africa united. Until that is done, we can sit on TV and pontificate about the possibility of an African Union and churn out all the beautiful slogans about African Union. And trust me, we would still continue to be at the same point. And that is what we should be fighting for. Reorientation of the mindset, especially for the younger generation, because they can lead that charge. We need that reorientation in our educational institutions. Look, I went to University of Ghana. I read political science. The only close I had or came to Pan-Africanism was when I decided to go outside the coastline to read a little about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I read history in senior secondary school. I was not exposed to any form of Pan-Africanism and the need for the African continent to be united. I went out of my way to learn it. So even if you are not exposed to the history, you find it difficult to ask the salient questions and to challenge yourself as a future leader of the country and the continent to begin to do things that are needed to propel that African unity drive.
Okay.
So, Senna, look, it is not simple. And we can decide to criticize African heads of states as long as we want and as much as we want. But the reality is that we have to go back to the basics. We have to go back to our roots to see how we can collectively begin to reorient mindsets and see how the youth can support that drive.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Owusu.
Thank you very much, Senna, and good morning to you, our cherished viewers and listeners on radio across the country. And good morning to Comrade Pratt and my brother Hamza. You see, in terms of the behavior of ECOWAS, I agree with ECOWAS. I agree with ECOWAS because Burkina, Mali, Niger, these are founding members of the ECOWAS, and they agree with the ECOWAS principles. If you read the treaty, ECOWAS treaty, they were an integral part in the formation of ECOWAS. How I see what these three leaders have done is to perpetuate their stay in office. What are we discussing? A military leader takes over a country called Burkina. A military leader takes over a country called Mali. A military leader takes over a country called Niger. Now, ECOWAS' position is that you must, as a matter of urgency, revert the country back to constitutional rule. That is the bone of contention. All of a sudden, these three countries come together and say we have formed a Sahelian region. Yes. What is the motive? Is it a case that we no longer want to be under the ECOWAS treaty, where we will be made to return the country back to constitutional rule? Hence, the need to form a Sahelian region where we are on our own. Nobody can come and dictate to us how we behave. I mean, that is how I see it. So, they're going out. It is to go and pursue their own political, parochial interest. Nothing more, nothing else. And Ghana, I believe, has done something that is economically good in this state. And here, let me commend the current president. Because you see, these three countries that have formed Sahelian region, whether we like it or not, they do a lot of business with Ghana. In fact, most of the transit goods that you see around, they are either going to Burkina or Niger or Mali. And because in the sub-region, countries that we share borders with, which are not landlocked, these three countries are landlocked, but those countries that are not landlocked, I'm talking about Togo and Ivory Coast, knows how important these three countries are. I believe you understand or you know that Togo wants to join the alliance. And Togo wants to join the alliance not because they believe in what these three countries are doing, but because they know that by virtue of joining the alliance, maritime business or marine business or as a port services can divert to them. So you see, in a bid to, as it were, deal with an issue, someone wants to cash in. And that could make our sub-region a very difficult place to do business. The reasons why these people took over, I'm talking about Captain Traore, I'm talking about Assimi Goïta, I'm talking about Chien. What were their reasons? In the case of Burkina, the claim is that jihadists were taking over the country. That was the claim. Because if you look at from 2020 to 2021, when Roch Marc Kabore was the president of Burkina, the military were claiming that he was looking on concern for jihadists to take the entire country. And that was how come Damiba took over from him in 2022 of January. Now, if you go and check the amount of land space that has been taken over by the so-called jihadists under the civilian rule, and you compare it to the amount of land area that have been occupied by these jihadists under Damiba, it was almost a par, the same. Now, terrorist claims that Damiba was also looking on concern. My difficulty is, when Traore was taken over from Damiba, Traore was in charge of a special force called Cobra in Burkina Faso that was dealing in an area called Kaya. And Kaya, if you know, Burkina is in the northern part. That is where the main action is. He couldn't fight it or fight it. But yet deposed Damiba. Now you have come to power. What the regional bloc is saying is that hand over the country back to the civilians to rule. You go to Mali, Assimi Goïta. You are here even promised and giving timelines. Few months to the time that you have to revert the country back to constitutional rule. He says, no, we have to extend it. In the case of Chiani, someone had been elected, duly elected as a president. He took him out. Bring timetable or timelines when you intend to revert the country back to constitutional rule is another matter. So it's as though we don't want to listen to you. So what do we do? Let's combine our forces and say we have formed a Sahelian region. But would they survive it? Would it help the interest of West Africa? West Africa is about 462 million people, including these three countries. If you take their population out, these three countries called the Sahelian, Burkina, Mali, and Niger, is about 77 million. So if 462 million that could form a very big market, we are even unable to actualize the vision. What impact will these three states make in West Africa? Mind you, West Africa, we are interdependents, we are families. You go to Mali, you go to Niger, you go to Togo, Ivory Coast. There are Ghanaians that traces their roots to Ivory Coast, Burkina, here and there. Likewise, the other way. So it does not serve anyone's interest to just disassociate yourself or distance yourself from a body that you were a founding member. And that is why I believe that the leaders of these three groups, these three countries, would, as a matter of urgency, reconsider their position and rejoin ECOWAS Yes, all of us know the difficulties with ECOWAS. Untruthful leaders, corrupt leaders, leaders that are supposed to look straight into people's faces and tell them, you are corrupt, you are criminal. We are unable to say it. Yes, you can say that at the time that there was confusion in Burkina, you had a leader like Tinubu who was seriously pursuing some small change, chicken change, money that was being offered by the international community to organize West Africa and go and attack one of its own, that is Burkina. But that has all take away the core principles that the founding fathers of Burkina stood on to join the ECOWAS. So now that you have taken yourself out, you know that under the ECOWAS protocol or treaty, citizens of ECOWAS can live freely and move freely in any of these regions. How do we treat Burkinabés in this country? And how are Burkinabés going to treat Ghanaians in their country? How is trading going to be done? Ghana buys a lot. At least we are buying close to $100 million worth of tomatoes from Burkina. How does it play out? So these are issues that must be considered in its entirety, and not to look at those that have mismanaged ECOWAS and based on that say you are distanced. Already we are fighting for African unity. It seems so difficult, and just like Hamza was saying, we have a lot of sub-regional blocks. We have the Southern African Development Corporation, you have ECOWAS. Everyone is trying to, as it were, have an identity. So if ECOWAS, we cannot even manage ourselves, how do you manage yourself as a Sahelian? And mind you, there is also a huge interest. I wouldn't be surprised that a year by now you would hear a different story, say in Burkina. Because if you read or look at the trajectory of Burkina Faso, this has been their lifestyle. From Abubakar, then another military leader comes to take over. Zabo comes in, he brings in Sankara. Sankara deposes him. Sankara brings in Blaise Compaoré. Compaoré is just within him, he also deposes him. That is what their lifestyle has been. Always military leader taking over. So tomorrow, if another military takeover takes place in Burkina, and that leader says, no, what my predecessor did, I was not in support, and decides to join ECOWAS again, what would we have done? They must go back to constitutional rule, return the country to civilian rule, and let the civilians take that decision, and that would be that ECOWAS must stand. If there are troubles with ECOWAS, they must go there, go to their heads of state meetings and speak out and boldly to correct the wrongs there, and not to distance themselves. That is what I will say this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you just join us, we are discussing the withdrawal, formal withdrawal of the Alliance of Sahel States from the Economic Community of West African States. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger are no longer members of ECOWAS. But ECOWAS says, stick to the agreements we have with them, extend the same courtesies to them for now. Comrade Pratt.
Well, I think it's important, to clearly distill the issue at stake. And for me, the issue at stake is not so much the unity of West African states or the unity of Africa or Pan-Africanism. That's not the issue at stake. The issue at stake are the values, the values that we should uphold as African people and as West African people. That's the issue at stake. So it's important to recognize that there are people who believe in African unity, who are right-wing, rabid, pro-imperialists. They believe in African unity. The likes of Senghor and so on. They believe in African unity. And there are those like Padmo, Nkrumah, and others who believe that African unity, Pan-Africanism makes sense only within the context of socialism. Okay. So it's important to recognize these differences over values. Now in ECOWAS, what is at stake now is what values should we uphold as member states of the Economic Community of West African States. There are those heads of states who insist that military regime should be completely outlawed in West Africa. You understand? And there are those heads of states who actually think that military regimes at some point may have some value and so on. So that's the issues in contention now. Now I'm shocked that ECOWAS would adopt a position of coup leaders bad, so-called democratically elected leaders good. Because if you look at the history of ECOWAS itself, ECOWAS was established at a time when the vast majority of West African leaders were military leaders. ECOWAS is a product of military rule to some extent. Okay. The other issue simply is that there are so-called civilian democratic governments which are far worse in terms of respect for human rights and so on than the military governments. And then bottom line, what do our people want? Do we just want forms, to chase forms? Or we want to look at content? This argument between form and content is very important. Today, there is no doubt whatsoever, and I have no doubt whatsoever, that if we were to organize elections in West Africa to choose one leader, and you put Ibrahim Traore against any of the West African leaders, he will beat them hands down in any popular elections. I have no doubt at all about that. Okay. So the argument of civilian regimes and military regimes collapses completely. Now, what are West African people looking for? West African people are seeking to assert their sovereignty. And that is why the Sahel states have been described as a backing on a revolution to restore national sovereignty. Okay. So if you take West African states which have foreign military bases, are controlled absolutely by France and Western states and so on, they are not upholding the sovereignty of their countries. And indeed they are an affront to the aspirations of their people. So ask yourself, why is Ibrahim Traore so popular everywhere he goes? Because people identify with him. They see him as a symbol of their aspirations and so on. So it's important to recognize that. Now, a year ago, Niger, for example, was classified as one of the poorest countries, I mean the three poorest countries in the world. Within 1 year, Niger has become the fastest growing economy in the world. That's a huge statement. At the time, Ghana is piling debt after debt after debt. At the time that we are going for, begging for debt relief and so on, look at what is happening in Niger. Should we be condemning Niger, or we should be copying them? Or should we be studying from them? Look at a country like Burkina Faso. Its gross domestic product has grown from 18.4 billion to 22 or 23 billion per annum. They're doing something right. Okay? So this whole argument about coup regimes and non-coup regimes, as far as I'm concerned, is a non-starter. Look, if leaders in West Africa or anywhere in the world use constitutional rule as some kind of a banner under which they misbehave, trample upon the rights of their citizens, change constitutionally imposed term limits, loot the coffers of their states and so on, there will be coup d'etats, and the coup d'etats will be justifiable. No doubt at all. If you do the kinds of things that these West African leaders are doing, there will be coup d'etats and they will be justifiable. Okay? So I agree with my brother here, my brother Suhini, that President John Dramani Mahama has started an initiative which makes a lot of sense. Engagement with them. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, it's important to recognize that the alliance of Sahel states originally started just as a military alliance. The principle was that if you attack one, you attack all of them and so on. But increasingly, it is going beyond the emergence of a military alliance to an economic bloc and so on, because of the deliberate sabotage of their economies by some of the West African states. And if you take Niger, Niger is unable to export its oil resources to China because of deliberate impediments being put in its way by Talon's regime in Benin. You understand? If you take Ghana, until recently, our president Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was engaged in open sabotage of the Sahel states. At least we saw him on camera urging Anthony Blinken of the United States of America to provide him with resources and support to subvert Burkina Faso. Why would anybody be in an economic community with you when you are deliberately, publicly, and openly plotting their subversion? They wouldn't. Okay, so like my brother here, I'm hoping that the initiatives which have been taken by President Dramani Mahama will lead to a situation where we'll be able to smoothen the edges, we'll be able to have some kind of a new relationship, if not coming back to ECOWAS, establish some kind of a new relationship with the Alliance of Sahel States. What is significant for me is that the Alliance has decided to uphold the principle of the free movement of goods and services across the sub-region, okay, which is very important. It's also important that ECOWAS has woken up to the reality that the sanctions against them do not make sense, and it's easing the sanctions and saying that we should continue to cooperate with them and so on. That's fine. I've had the privilege of spending some time in Niger. And you see, those who sit here and condemn coup regimes like my brother Sholo do not have any understanding of what is happening on the ground.
What is happening if you can? What is happening with the coup?
The popular mobilization of people did not exist under any civilian administration. I've seen popular mobilization of people. I've seen citizens in their communities pouring out in the streets at night and keeping vigil to protect, the regime and their country. The expulsion of the French military from Niger was done by the population and so on. You understand? And this insistence on reinstating Bazoum and so on is so stupid, it's unbelievable. Bazoum, he can't govern Niger for 24 hours. He's so unpopular.
But he was voted for. He was voted for.
Solo?
Yeah.
I'm happy that this is coming from you.
Yes.
Because you know Ghanaian elections. You've participated in it.
Yes.
And I've heard you make statements at the quality of elections.
Yes.
The fact that somebody gets voted for does not mean that democracy has been enshrined. Papa Dog and Baby Dog, were they not voted for?
Yeah, voted for.
So don't make that argument. It's a very bad argument to make. It's an extremely bad argument to make. Okay? Nasimbe Yadima.
Yes.
Was he not voted
He
for?
was voted for.
Ufe Boayi, was he not voted for?
He was voted for.
Alassane Ouattara, was he not voted for?
He was voted for.
So don't make that argument again.
So you support coup d'etat?
I don't support...
That is the position now.
No. I don't support coup d'etats as an absolute. But I'm saying that when leaders misbehave and make it impossible for people to express themselves democratically and make it impossible for people to take their destiny into their own hands, coup d'etats will occur as a natural consequence of the foolishness of our leaders. And when they occur, it is not in our duty to condemn them. It's in our duty to assist in the process of creating a mass-based, democratic base to the governance of our societies. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
No, but I need a clarity there, please. So, but it's very important, you see, that when a coup d'etat takes place, under the circumstances you have described, and say there has to be a democratic base, how do we ensure that democratic base with a coup leader, a military leader? No, it's very important.
Solo.
I don't have it.
Solo. You are making, you see, you are making the mistake of dwelling on form rather than on substance.
No, you see.
Please, can I finish?
Let him.
You are making a mistake of dwelling on form rather than on substance. That's your problem.
So
that's your problem.
okay.
Today, I can say with all honesty that if you are looking for countries which are upholding democratic ethos in West Africa, you would not count La Côte d'Ivoire amongst them, even though their leader was voted for. If you are looking for countries that are upholding the democratic ethos in West Africa, I will count Burkina Faso. Because I'm not looking at form. Here is a regime which is making conscious efforts to make sure that the resources of Burkina Faso are owned by the Burkinabe people and are exploited for the benefit of the Burkinabe people. What is more democratic than that? Here is the government which is making sure that no foreign power, however strong, dictates to it, and that it pursues the aspirations of its people. What is more democratic than that? So don't let us look at form, let us look at substance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A few comments that are being shared on this on Facebook. Efo Kujo Edem says, please, frankly speaking, I support the military regimes going on in Niger, Mali, and other military rulers in Africa because they are making serious changes in their countries. I support Mr. Pratt. There's also Jonathan Dokken who says, the fact is that most of our leaders have for a very long time hidden behind ECOWAS to serve their personal interests than that of the various nations they lead. What we should pay attention to is that some of these military leaders are not ruling to the admiration of their citizens by bringing real development. That's Burkina Faso. Look at the applause he is receiving among all the lots of democratic leaders at GM's inauguration. This should be a signal to ECOWAS and our so-called democratic leaders. Jonathan Dokken, who sent that from Akachi. Peter Doji says, one serious thing Mahama and the administration must know is that those leaders are not and will never come back to the so-called ECOWAS. And anyone who proposes that will be cut off immediately. And they must understand that. That's interesting. Peter Kofi Samuel says, are the democratic countries better than the military countries? In any case, ECOWAS was formed in 1972, during which time military men were in the helms of affairs. So what are all these noise about? If civilian democracy were doing well, why would the military take over? Peter Doji against Burkina Faso in 2 years is having over 100 tons of gold reserve. How many tons of gold reserve does Ghana have? A few more comments on this. In fact, Samuel Appiah says, Basolo, I don't think ECOWAS can issue an embargo to Ghana and Burkina. Ghana has not decided to stop trading with Burkina. There's Charles Graham who says, Mr. Solo, please leave our Sahelian leaders to act in their own interests. Today's Chinese economic miracle emanated from a military regime, as Rwanda too. So there's no merit in a so-called Western democracy delivering tangible results. In any case, where else has the democracy worked, apart from the Northern Hemisphere? Mr. Owusu, does the U.S. populace even freely elect both its president and vice president? Those are just some of the comments that are coming in on the discussion. This one just comes from Samba Damo, who says, for the first time in history, Comoros President Azali Assoumani was in Ghana together with GM just to establish Comoro Embassy in Accra. Zachary Abdo Momo said, well done, Uncle Kwesi. I wish Uncle Kwesi can. What does this have to do with the discussion? Well, thank you. Thank you very much for those comments. Yes, a good morning to a big thank you to Shine FM in Akachi 96.9, Hills FM in Adakulu 91.7. We are also live on Newasi Radio in Ketekrach on 89.7 FM, Stella Radio Dabala 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale on 93.7, Bewa Radio Yendi 106.5, Radio Kitawan Saboba 95.7, Benya FM Elmina on 105.7, Global FM on 105.1, Zebs FM 95.9 in Zabela, True FM 92.5 in Adeso, Lamara FM 89.1 Treponi, Buem 88.7 FM in Jessica, and Lukusi 96.1 in Vegolo Kwati, Tine FM 90.9, Sekwele FM 104.3, Akbini Radio in Pando, Denigba Radio 90.9, OT Radio in Dubai are all tuning to the mother of all talk shows, Alaji and Alaji. If you're listening to us, thank you. Do share your thoughts with us. We'll read it as we go along in the show. Of course, our WhatsApp and text message line 0559-919-802. Do join us. Well, we have to move on to the discussion over what transpired in Parliament. And the Speaker issued specific directives. I'm sure you have by now seen the video in circulation. This is the, especially at the vetting committee. I mean, people turning over tables, people attempting to do that, others stopping them from doing it, the distraction of the mics, all in pursuant as a protest against a continuation of the vetting on the day in question. The minority says they agreed on 4, and then they made room for 1 more, which was 5. Then they were being forced to do an extra 2. So the majority told them that if you won't do, go, we'll continue. They said no, there will be no vetting today as far as they are concerned. And that was how it all started. Well, this is the Speaker. A very lengthy statement, but these are the directives it issued. First, in the circumstance of the absence of a Privileges and Immunity Committee, a 7-member special committee shall be constituted under Orders 5 and 20 Rule 4 to conduct a full-scale investigation into the events of yesterday. That was as at yesterday he was speaking. And this morning, the committee shall identify all members involved in the disorder and submit its report with findings and recommendations within 10 days from today. Any member found culpable shall face the appropriate disciplinary measures as prescribed by the Constitution 1992, the Parliament Act of 1965, and the Standing Orders of Parliament. The following members shall constitute the membership of the Special Committee. The committee is led by Honorable Emmanuel Bejra, so a 7-member committee has been formed. Then he continues to say, in pursuance of Section 10 of the Parliamentary Service Act 1993, Act 460, I direct the clerk to Parliament to cause to be undertaking a full assessment of all damage caused within the committee room and parliamentary precincts as a result of the misconduct of the members. Not a single peso of public funds shall be used to repair or replace any damaged property. Instead, members found responsible shall be surcharged for the full cost of repairs and replacement, with deductions made from their emoluments, including the salaries of members if necessary. Then it continues, in pursuance of the provisions of Constitution 1992 and Standing Orders of Parliament, I further direct the clerk to formally lodge a complaint with the Ghana Police Service to conduct a full criminal investigation into the matter for appropriate action. Further, I call for an immediate meeting of the Committee of Selection today, that was yesterday, to reconstitute the Appointment Committee as a matter of urgency and to set up the Standing Orders Committee to reconsider a revision of the rules for the assessment of nominees for the consideration and approval of the House. He went ahead to also suspend a few. So they said, consequently, the following members are suspended from the sittings of Parliament for 2 weeks from yesterday. They are Mr. Roxy Nelson Eche Kwame Dafameko, Majority Whip; Frank Anodompre, Minority Whip; Alasan Suleiman Tampoli, and Mr. Jerry Ahmed Shaib. In the meantime, a deputy whip from each side of the political divide are hereby directed to act in their stead. Those are the directives the Speaker has issued. So we'll be talking about that, and I once again start with Hamza on this issue.
Sana, when it comes to the conduct of Parliament, it once again reflects the nature of our institutions and how, as a result of our democratic practice, people who are not in actual sense qualified in any serious jurisdiction to be lawmakers of a country find themselves through the process in Ghana, specifically. I say so because sometimes if you look at the conduct of our MPs, you begin to wonder whether as a country we do the needed due diligence in presenting candidates, that is as political parties, to be elected as members of parliament in our country. Because you see, I have always said that in a democracy, we can all make reference to the constitutional architecture that creates the state institutions, but its form is theoretical. When you come to the real practical leg of democracy, you simply cannot downplay the significance of parliament as an institution. And so it presupposes that in determining who goes into parliament, we must put vested interest in that regard and ensure that that institution is not open to all kinds of people to enter. If you get that place wrong, these are some of the issues you are likely to encounter. And if you look at the major political parties today, access to even contest as a parliamentary candidate is largely dependent on your resource strength. It has nothing to do with your capabilities. It has nothing to do with your disposition as a responsible person in society. It is largely rooted in your resource capabilities and to some extent your political network within that political organization. These are the issues. So you simply cannot help but produce ambassadors of your country, because every member of parliament is not just the foreign minister. Every member of parliament of this country is an ambassador of the republic, whether locally or internationally. And so their conduct must be in sync with our objectives as a country. Because you see, the more they denigrate themselves and demonstrate to the Ghanaian public that they are incompetent to occupy those roles, the larger the implications internationally on us all. So we must find a way of sieving our parliamentary candidates before they get into parliament. Because that conduct that day was not just an indictment on those MPs and the individual people who engaged in it. It was an indictment on the institution of parliament, and to a very large extent internationally, an indictment on our country. Because it will tell how the international community will take us. It's part of our image. And as a people, we must be interested in electing responsible parliamentarians into parliament. I saw the conduct of another prayer, largely influenced by the current minority leader, Afenyo Marking, clearly unparliamentary. If anybody had done so, they, the very people, would have been before parliament calling for them to face the privileges committee. And I've always maintained that the privileges committee is being used as a backing dog against Ghanaians, not against members of parliament. And it's being used as a punitive measure only. But what they fail to understand is that those privileges are not designed only for their benefit as members of parliament. It is designed for the protection and sanctity of the institution of parliament created by the aspirations of the Ghanaian people. And so even in conducting themselves in parliament, due regard must be had to that. And some of these occurrences, I know this is not the first time, but we are developing, we must be making progress as a republic. There must be genuine efforts on the parts of our lawmakers to demonstrate responsibility to the many youth out there who look up to them for leadership. And so for me, I think that the political parties must begin to tighten their selection process when it comes to members of parliament, so that we can work together in the collective interest of this country to protect the sanctity of our institutions and not to open the floodgates for all manner of characters to have access, largely because of how deep their pockets are or how well connected they are politically. These things must be checked. Again, now coming back to the substance of the Speaker's declaration, I have a problem. Respected legal luminary, a veteran parliamentarian, and so very conversant with the rules of Parliament. But you see, there are some initial questions I may want to pose. Per what you have just read, I understand that the Speaker has ordered the formation of a committee to look into the disturbances that occurred. So on what basis did the Speaker then proceed, before even the committee starts work? On what basis did the Speaker proceed to suspend this for? Look, I'm a member of the National Democratic Congress, a proud member at that. I should be out there hailing the Speaker, especially considering the fact that the Speaker is one of the people who have mentored me in this game back as far as when I was even in University of Ghana first year. Took me as a son. But you see, if we are not careful as a political party, we would end up opening ourselves up for attacks. And by so doing, we would end up losing the goodwill of the Ghanaian people. And these are some of the petty mistakes we can make, which would open us up to such attacks. So for me, I want to understand the basis of the suspension. On what investigation? What was the investigation that resulted in that? You see, we must respect our institutions and follow due process. Because if it was done in another administration, I'm sure that would have been asking those questions. I sincerely agree with the Speaker that people should be punished. They should be suspended. But if you have set up a committee to look into the matter, you simply do not jump the gun by proceeding to mete out punishment even before the committee starts work. This is a bit problematic for me. And for those who may want to take the National Democratic Congress to the cleaners, that is an easy bite for them to take. Because whichever way you look at it, the Speaker is a member of the National Democratic Congress. And so his actions have consequences on the entirety of the government. So for me, I would appeal to the Speaker to once again look at his own orders and see how those things can be corrected. Let the committee go ahead with their work, come out with their findings, and based on the findings, sanctions can be meted out to those found culpable. And again, another leg of his order, which I agree with, apart from the fact that people should be made to pay for the destruction of state properties, here the MPs, I also fully subscribe with his direction that the CID department of the police service must investigate what occurred. Because you see, it's a criminal conduct. And when it comes to state property, irrespective of your standard, even if you are the president of the republic, if you are engaged in damaging state property, that is a criminal offense in our law books. So they should not just be made to compensate for the destruction. We expect punitive sanctions that would deter others, because you see, they have the financial muscle to do so. And in the next year or two, they can go on that spree again. But we need punitive measures that are such that they can actually prevent such future occurrences from happening. But when it comes to the conduct of our MPs, my own senior brother is one. And I'm making reference to the Honorable Minister. He says he doesn't like Honorable Senior Comrade, Minister for Employment. You see? Environment. Yes, when it comes to, and in all honesty, that is why I have never had the motivation to go pick a form to contest as a member of Parliament. That's why I've never had the motivation. Because we must lead this life based on principles. There are so many people I would not be proud to share parliamentary seats with, because I know a number of them. And if truly our task is to fashion out laws and ensure accountability of the executive, there are many of them in there who simply do not understand that basic realities or responsibilities entrusted on them. They have just found their ways there through their political associations, like I indicated earlier, or how deep their pockets are. And so, if you mean well for this country, there will be that reluctance. And the problem is not just the MPs. Even the people who elect them are here. I'm making reference to the citizens. Because what would be the essence of pretending to represent people who do not actually even understand the mandate they are giving you as a member of parliament? So you go out there, you promise heaven on earth, because they simply do not have an iota of understanding of the responsibilities of a member of parliament. They vote you and you go into parliament, and the next day you wake up in your house. There are people out there who are demanding you to pay school fees. They are demanding for you to do their outdoorings for them, perform funerals. I do not have the heart to endure that, in all honesty. In all honesty, I do not. All my student life, I have contested for for student leadership positions, because I knew at the student level that I was dealing with people who understood to a very large extent the mandate they were giving me. And so I've always been motivated. From my training college, when I trained as a teacher, to my university days, and even my postgraduate studies, I've always been interested in student leadership positions, because there I can be rest assured of accountability and the appreciation of the mandate that people are giving me. Unfortunately, these basic principles are lacking. The motivation today is simply to have access to your share of state resources as a member of parliament. That is the unfortunate reality. And if you are confident in yourself that even without such access, you can still be a productive member of society and you can achieve greatness for yourself, trust me, your interest in going into that house would be waned. Because we must have virtues. One must stand for something in society. And that is lacking. And that brings me back finally to the nature of our political parties elsewhere. And that is not to say that that is the best practice. Elsewhere, the political parties have standing working committees. So you have the educational committee, you have the finance committee. So if after university I decide that I'm not going to go to the private sector and I'm not going to pick up job with any public sector, I apply to join the National Democratic Congress. I'm assigned to a committee of my interest. I begin to learn about the rudiments of that sector of our economy or of our nation. If I'm interested in the security committee of a political party that I'm a member of, I get employed, I start working within that architecture. I start serving people even when they come for meetings to an extent that I'm co-opted as a member of the committee. Then I begin to have an understanding of that sector of our country before I even get the opportunity in the future maybe to be appointed as a minister or deputy minister in that sector. Today, what do we see? People are appointed from parliament to parliamentary positions, to executive positions, largely because of their constituencies. Not based on any substantive merit in terms of what they are going to do. And you expect development? You simply will not get it. You won't see any real change. And so, this cycle of having to go to the polls every 4 years, anticipating realistic change, would continue to be an illusion. So we must begin to have a rethink when it comes to our political architecture. The political parties must take these things seriously. Ethics should be the foundation of every political grouping. People must have ethics. They must have values. It is not the case in our country today. It is not the case in our country today. That is not to say that you simply cannot point to 1 or 2, 3 people and say that these people stand tall when it comes to issues of integrity. Yes, there are a number of them in parliament that we can make reference to. But you see, irrespective of their efforts, there are many of their colleagues in there who make us question the continued relevance of that institution. And to a very large extent, even the continued relevance of the current stature of political parties we have in the country. So, Senna, we should not just be concentrating on the effects. Oh, there was distraction in Parliament spearheaded by MPs. We have to go back to the root cause. And we must hold the political parties responsible. We must see realistic change in their operations. We must demand it. So if there's going to be sanctions, the political parties themselves must share in that sanctions the Speaker is talking about. It should not just end with punitive measures meted out to those identified MPs. There must be a cost element associated with it so that the political parties can bear. If they feel the heat, they will also raise their standard when it comes to their selection process for Parliament. I think that we deserve that. That is the least we deserve as a republic. And so the time has come for us to call on them as political leaders and as political parties to signal a desire to change. Look, we were part of this change crusade in terms of the election of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the NDC, because we believe that His Excellency and Mahama and the NDC administration can really bring change. So we will not sit aback and engage in the usual political praise singing for his administration to make the same mistakes Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo made. And I said it, that in as much as I'm a bit reluctant when it comes to ethnic references, but especially for those of us coming from the northern sector, the least we expect is his success, because we know that it would have a bearing on us if he fails to deliver. And that is why we are enjoined to call on him to deliver, not just as President of the Republic, but also as leader of the National Democratic Congress, in bringing these needed reforms, at least so that the MPP can also follow suit and make our institutions more reliable. So if the Speaker's finding exposes misconduct on the part of NDC MPs, they must be penalized. And His Excellency President Mahama should not end there. He must ensure that the party itself finds a way of holding them accountable. That is what the reset agenda is about. Where there need be for us to start it at home, we must. When it comes to the conduct of the, especially now that we are in government, we have a bigger, what's the name? We bear the brunt. I've always said that Ghanaians are expecting us to turn around the economy. And sometimes that's why when I hear people condemn the leaders in Parliament in terms of their stance and beginning to say that the NDC bench side is now weak, I laugh. Because we understand the responsibility that has been entrusted on us. Our economy is in shambles. There is the need for us to redeem that. We are dealing with foreign partners. If we give them the slightest indication that the minority, because of their numbers, their views don't matter, what simply we are telling our foreign partners is that issues of accountability will be on the back burner. And so they should shy away from bringing their investments into the country. And we are in dire need of FDIs as far as the state of this economy is concerned, if we are to create jobs and revive certain state institutions. So we cannot be seen giving that indication to our international partners that because of their small numbers, they do not matter. So sometimes our leaders are forced to endure them, largely because of imaging. It doesn't mean that we are weak. This is the same Parliament that succeeded in shutting down Parliament for close to a month, even in the face of Supreme Court order, to protect excesses in an election year expenditure. So what makes you think that today, majority of those MPs who are back in Parliament cannot stand up to the NPP, now that even their numbers are 80? Because we bear the brunt of responsibility now, and we must demonstrate it. So, Senator, Speaker must have a rule look of the orders, especially the issue about the constitution of the Appointments Committee. It's needless. You don't need to reconstitute the Appointments Committee. And so for me, when I heard the order, I was a bit uncomfortable in that regard too. Because it has been created. It just happens that per the standing orders of the House, the minority and majority chief whip are members of the committee. But if in their absence, if a quorum is formed, the committee can still proceed to do business. So there is no need for such an order to have the committee reconstituted.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. A few comments are coming in very fast. Let me go to Facebook once again. That's Alasan Alasan Uzaligo, who says, good morning. He's watching us live inside Tamale. Can the NDC move without this micro-minority? The same issue as Hamza was trying to address. As Ghanaians didn't just hand over power to NDC on a silver platter. They should know that. There's an alamne or that elamte says focusing on our mental health is perhaps the most powerful step one can take to improve our overall quality of life. Mental health check is very important. Ghana doesn't take mental health serious. Emmanuel Boyko says, Ghanaians, when you allow money to lead you, you end up voting for empty-headed students, criminals, thieves, rooks, and useless and silly people to lead you. Yes, because the one who has money is the one who will lead you. So if your leader is a fool, but because he has money, so who will lead you? There's Mohammed Misbahuddin, who says, the chaos that happened on Wednesday night, Afenyomakins must be blamed. Charles Graham, can such a shameful and childish comedy ever occur in China? There's Francis Gordon, who is also joining us. What happened on Thursday at the vetting was very disgusting. Members of parliament were behaving like WWE artists, using tables and chairs as a defense mechanism, bringing total chaos. It is a shame to Ghana and should be condemned at all costs. Members of parliament should show maturity in everything that they do in the interest of Ghana. Alasan again, okay, I think it's a repetition of the comments he sent earlier. Goy says, when an incident happened, you first suspend those involved for investigations to start. So what's he talking about? He disagrees with a lawyer. There's Abdul Ghaffar Mohammed. We are watching every single thing happening there. 4 years is just around the corner. No Ghanaian is foolish. They should write their exams. We will mark them. Destroying public property at the expense of an ordinary Ghanaian. Our eyes on every single person. If someone calls them indisciplined lawmakers, they quickly say it's contempt of parliament and you shall face the privileges committee. It's sent down from Tamale Gumani. There's Alfred Kukusapa who says, the Honorable Speaker should have added Afenyomakin to those he suspended because he failed as the minority leader to control his side in a committee. Secondly, this unacceptable act happened in his presence. There's Neil Ate who says, this gentleman has spoken my mind and I salute him. Sam Hammond, as of now, I'm at a loss as to what he's driving and defending lawlessness. There's Isaac Asase AEC. Okay, noted. Zachary Abdul Moment says, I hold a view that the chairman should be blamed for allowing the MPP MPs to misbehave. There is Gafaru Janton Daboshi, who is also joining us. Says, Mr. what happened in Parliament is unfortunate. It must be condemned, and what Speaker did is the right direction. Chani Tete says, Afanya should be added to the suspension because he initiated what is happening in Parliament, because I listened to him on a network. His comments ignited all this. Meanwhile, the same day, the Speaker spoke about leadership. So those are some of the comments coming in. I can continue to read more, but let's listen to Mr. Osu first. And first, let me welcome Comrade Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Apologies for coming late.
We are discussing your house, so
I know, right?
So let's hear.
Yes, and before I proceed to the substantive, let me say that the Movement for Change has issued a statement on this matter. You know, the Movement for Change remains the only credible movement in this country. And with your leave, let me read to the hearing of your viewers and listeners. Press statement that was issued yesterday. Movement for Change condemns parliamentary scuffle and destruction of public property. The Movement for Change strongly condemns the disgraceful scuffle that erupted in Parliament during the vetting of Honorable Samuel Okuyeto Ablakwa and Honorable Kwabena Minta Akando. Even more concerning is the fact that in the course of this altercation, members of Parliament engaged in the destruction of state property in an act that is not only irresponsible but also an affront to the people of Ghana, whose taxes fund the functioning of our democratic institutions. Parliament, as the highest legislative body, has a solemn duty to foster a culture of political tolerance, mutual respect, and accountability. It must lead by example in shaping a political environment that encourages diverse viewpoints and uphold democratic values. The recent occasion, however, does the exact opposite. It weakens the faith in fidelity. It weakens the faith and fidelity of the Ghanaian people in Parliament's ability to provide the responsible leadership required to advance national progress. The movement for change urges all members of Parliament to uphold the principles of decorum, constructive engagement, and adherence to the rule of law. Ghana's democracy thrives when its leaders engage in meaningful debate, not physical confrontations and the destruction of public property. Further call on the government, particularly Parliament, to spearhead efforts in building a political culture that tolerates different opinions, promotes national unity, and reinforces the accountability of leadership. The future of our democracy depends on the integrity and conduct of leaders. It is time for Parliament to restore the confidence of the Ghanaian people by committing to a higher standard of governance, one that ensures the rule of law and democratic principles are always upheld and public resources are safeguarded. This is from the movement for change. You see, Senna, there is a very particular provision in our constitution that I always come here and read it, and I don't know why we are not making that effort to implement it. You see, when you read Article 42, it says every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above, and of what? Sound mind, has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public elections and referenda. There is a reason why the Constitution or the framers of the Constitution in their own wisdom said we must register people who are of sound mind. Because people who are of sound mind will go and vote for members of Parliament who are of sound mind. But we seem to be ignoring this provision. Because the insanity happening there is too much. Nobody can tell me that what happened in Parliament on Thursday night constitutes sanity. It's also it's a big problem. It's a big problem. You see, in 2019, the Parliament of Ghana passed the Vigilante and Other Related Offences Act, and in that act, a lot of these groups, vigilante groups, were disbanded. You can talk about the Boga Bulldogs, the Kandahar Boys, the Tuhazi, and so on and so forth. No, some of them have found their ways in Parliament, and it comes back to the issue that Hamza raised, the monetization of our politics. It is no more about the quality. Who has the money to pay delegates to get the nod? So that we have various constituencies that, as people will say, even if you put a tree there in representing a particular political party, that tree is likely to find its way into Parliament. And this is where we must make that effort to correct it. That is not to say we don't have fine parliamentarians in the House, but how many are they? And we are extending our student boyism and guyism into the House. I see a lot of these things as those days I were in school. Nooks politics. Everything must be reduced to who can fight, who can shout. Other than that, if you are doing vetting, now you claim that two people have been brought in without your knowledge or without your notice, and that you are not going to vet them. Must that resort to destruction of state properties? And mind you, the Constitution makes it clear that all of us are equal before the law. When people went to a table after the elections to destroy a police station, the people were chased. As we speak, there is a manhunt for them to be arrested. I expect the IGP, without any further delays, to arrest all those that took part in this. That we are sending a very bad signal to the people of this country that members of Parliament are above the law. They are not. If you cannot vet them, go and sit in your house. If it has to be rescheduled, reschedule. What is the big deal? After all, whatever is happening there, it is rubber stamp. But then everyone will go through. who will be denied his appointment? Tell me, as we are sitting here. Everyone will go through. So there wasn't any need to be destroying state properties. In terms of the orders that have been given by the Speaker, I think it's in the right direction. It's in the right direction because, you see, with what has happened, there has to be a monumental shift and a very grave consequence for the Ghanaian to be reassured that there is leadership in Parliament. Yes, you can say that it's not as though it's headmaster and student relationship. But if these two people are not removed, and if you are removing them and their standing orders permit them to be part of the appointment committee, then it stands to reason that you need to fill that gap. That is why I say reconstitution, not necessarily reconstitute the entire body, but probably to fill in that gap of the chief whip and the minority chief whip so that they can continue to do their business. So I agree with it. In terms of surcharging them with the cost, perfect, but it must come with an interest rate. You get my point? And we must see evidence of that. This country, what happens is that the Speaker can give this order to please the public. But in reality, nobody's salary will be deducted. It will be business as usual. The Speaker must go for, make the step or take that step to also show us when and how it was deducted so that all of us can verify. So that all of us can verify. Only a few days ago, some of us were very hard on MFA Hakasso. For having gone to Parliament House to disrespect Anodonpre. I wasn't happy, though Anodonpre has never been my fan. He's also one of the most arrogant, rude guys in that parliament there. That has another matter that will be dealt with later. But for you to have gone there, to have taken him to the cleaners, I felt it was wrong. Only for he and Anodonpre to lead this onslaught. He should have been more than 5 weeks of suspension. I tell you, because he led the placing of chairs. So how can his punishment be the same as the favor? I saw Jerry Ahmed, first time MP. I mean, how? Jerry, how can you do this? You are not representing yourself as Jerry Ahmed, but you are representing the people of Wetherbawe. You contested first at, what's the name? Vanderpool's place.
Ablekuma South.
Ablekuma South. They rejected you. You went to a safe haven. They gave you opportunity. Those days you went to meet your predecessors. Was that the way they were behaving in Parliament? You go there and destroy. That is what you want to be remembered for. That the MP that led destruction. So his should have been at par with Anodonpre. The film apostle was an exchange with what's the name? Tapuli.
Yeah.
Yes, could have come out to 4. At least they didn't point their faces. If adults, your daughters and your sons will see that you went to Parliament to point your faces, that's your own cup of tea. And the fifth one is who?
No, 4.
There are 4.
4, yes. 4.
And you see, this whole vetting, if you look at what is happening there, it's all about settling scores. It's all about, there's real reason why people are sending. They don't even ask questions. But let me congratulate incoming Minister for Environment, Science and Technology. You did so much. You did well. You are on top of your issues. I think it's good. Yeah. We needed to hear more of them about the area. If they did not have any idea how they intend to manage complexities. Now that is why people want to show that you said this on campaign platform. Come and answer here. That is not, for me, a good exercise. And as we must refrain from that. Our brothers in the MPP must understand that they have lost and lost squarely. We of the movement for you, we lost and we are still moving on. Life goes on. And we are going to make sure that we hold this government to their tail. We are not going to stop whatever we are doing. It is in our interest that we do that. So when you lose, accept it and move forward. But they seem not to be getting over the defeat not hefty enough, but you must also move on. So I believe that on that score, it is not in our interest. But you see, something is coming out of the vetting committee. That's enough. Politicians, one day, I have been fighting against coup makers, and that is where sometimes they allow themselves to let people that believe in coup makers, coups and stuff, to have their way. Almost from across the divide, all of them, they buy government properties with ease. I was surprised to learn that if you are a member of what? The Lands and something committee, and you are done with your tenure, they salute you with the land. You are saluting parliamentarians with land in this country. By the time you are done with the salute, then all our lands will be finished, will be gone. Hey! No. When I heard it, I felt that this is a banana republic. The people that are saluting you with the land, the moment they salute you with 1 acre, they salute themselves to 10 acres. That is why all these public servants are so corrupt. They bait you with 1, they take 10. You see, we must build this country. We must build it. We must build it. So when I heard it, I was saddened by it. And I said, well, maybe one day we need the Holy Spirit to come and change our situation. But Hamza says something. We need to go back to how we get people selected across the political divide. I don't think there's much scrutiny done at that base. I don't think so. If you were going to do, I don't believe that these two political parties, the representation in parliament, these are their best shots. They are very fine gentlemen in there. And you see why I've been fighting against the NDC and MPP. Once again, it was these two parties that went to cause this commotion. Meanwhile, we have independent candidates in there. None of them were part of it. So going forward, maybe the Ghanaian must begin to reorient ourselves and get more people who love this country to come in, so that together we can develop this country. As for the minority, we still need them at the vetting committee. I disagree with anybody that says that the vetting must go on without the minority. Because yesterday night I observed something funny. When the minority group left the vetting, it was free for all. Hey, Mr. Paul, you didn't watch. You would have run to the appointment committee to stop whatever they were doing there. Someone comes, say something about yourself. My name is 2 minutes. Then all of them and block. They were going like that. That is not how you want to develop this country. So we need the minority, because the majority, and I understand the majority, when you are in the same party with someone and the person comes to the vetting committee and go and ask that person a question and the person fumbles, I can assure you that person will have you at the back of his mind for the rest of his life, that you decided to disgrace him. I don't think the majority members on the appointment committee, they don't have questions. They have a lot of questions. But the fear of asking a colleague a question to bring the worst out of him is what is preventing them. But if you're on the appointment committee, you must understand that you are not representing yourself. Yesterday, I saw my MP at the appointment committee. He was rather arranging the microphones. I said, hey, Kion, were you taking to Parliament to be arranging microphones? The people of Okakwe South want to hear something from you. Ask questions.
I don't think he's on a committee.
What was he doing there? I saw him arranging microphone. If you are not part, go and sit at the plenary. So what did he come to do there? Joe, you shouldn't come there, let me see him at all, because I ask questions. And therefore, when you see your MP at the appointment committee, he must ask questions on behalf of the constituents. With this, I will plead that parliamentarians, you see, the public opinion about you is going so fast down, and if you don't take any effort, make any effort to reverse it, you yourself you live to regret it. I'll end it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, if you just join us, Mother of all talk shows, we are live from the studios of Pan-African Television. We are live on Pan-African Television across Ghana, many African countries, and across the world. And of course, we are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. A few things, a few comments to read. Someone just sent this. I think his name is Francis Abaka, who says the Speaker of Parliament can suspend a Member of Parliament under Standing Order 130. which deals with suspension of member for disorderly conduct. This order allows the Speaker to suspend a member who has engaged in disorderly conduct, such as disrupting proceedings of the House or using unparliamentary language. Additionally, the Speaker can also suspend a member under Standing Order 36, which deals with member in contempt of Parliament or in breach of parliamentary privileges. This order allows the Speaker to suspend a member who has been found guilty of contempt of Parliament or breach of parliamentary privilege. It is worth noting that the Speaker's power to suspend a member is not absolute and must be exercised in accordance with the Constitution and standing orders of Parliament. Thank you very much for that comment. This is Oli from Gomoa West. Oli says Afenyomakins should also be suspended and apologize to the nation and the good people of North Tong for disrespecting them. But it was right for Anodompre to say Mahama is a curse to Ghana. Okay, that woman was right. No one should touch her. Oli Sender from Gomoa West. There's Edem Logo Joe, who says, good morning. I'm of a strong belief that the Speaker should suspend more than 4 MPs, excluding Honorable Dapamepo. Because as per what we saw, he was rather calm when Tampoli held his smoke, swearing to all heavens to beat the hell out of him. Another MP misbehaving in the full glare of the cameras was Miss MP Befi. He was also all over the place, pushing and pulling tables. He must be suspended immediately. Unfortunately, a lot of people have watched the videos. This one says, Ghana's problem is hypocrisy. Refusal to point out the problem makers, but always jump to add everyone. MPP is causing all this. That's from me without a name. There's this one says Minority Leader John Afenyomakins should be suspended for leading the chaos in the vetting. Johnny Adams said that from Tema. This one says, good morning, Senator. What happened in Parliament recently during the vetting of the President's nominees is a clear indication of a drastic reduction in quality of members who find their way to Parliament through the usage of money. Thank you for that comment. Rose says, okay, Davisana Keta says the chaos that happened during the ministerial vetting was instigated by Afenyomakin. We saw it live. Here, Afenyomakin, Patricia PAJ, Anodompre. Surprisingly, the freshers were very aggressive. As for Roxton, the Dapamepo and some NDC MPs were blocking the MPP from damaging the tables and the microphones, but MPP members held on to his smoke, dragging him. It was a very disgraceful act. Thank you for the comment. And then there's Frederick Omashalibo, who says, I want to understand how the appointment committee will give a time duration of 1 hour for vetting and still manage to say some ranking members of the committee have unlimited time and questions to ask. How does the two work? Frederick, thank you. I was asking myself the same question. Frederick, there's an Afi from Tamale Central Constituency who says, I will advise the majority to be wise and focus on making Ghana better. There are too many discerning voters who stayed away from the election, so we should not be deceived by the election results. Focus on delivering promises. Thank you, Anafi, for that comment that you sent. So those are just some of the comments I'm reading from our WhatsApp platform. But if you join us, it's a matter of all talk shows, Alaji and Alaji. And let's go to Comrade Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, who was duly vetted. I'm sure you're still waiting for the report of the committee, and then it goes to the House, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Senator. Good morning to Senior and my kid brother and my very interesting butterfly friend. And good morning to your cherished viewers, and most importantly, the good people of Tamale Central. Maybe perhaps the butterfly, I should no longer address you as such.
No, I love the butterfly.
Oh, okay, great. Very interesting submissions. On my way, I was listening to my brother, Hamza Sohine, and with profound amusement. I can understand the frustration sometimes and the anger of the Ghanaian people, taking into consideration the important role the legislature should be playing as far as our democratic governance is concerned. Unfortunately, Parliament is becoming an aberration of a real legislature. It's unfortunate. And it is occasioned by the conduct of some members of parliament. I guess I'm now vindicated for why I consistently refuse to be addressed as honorable. And I've always said that the reason why I refuse to be addressed as honorable, first and foremost, because I believe in the social democratic principles, that is one. And also, most importantly, the conduct of some so-called honorables are absolutely dishonorable. So there is no any honor in wanting to be associated or addressed by that title. And I think that conduct such as this vindicate me. But it is important to state that my good friend Afenyo Markins and the entirety of the MPP, particularly their leadership and communicators, their career is soaked in lies and depravity. And it is very clear by some of the pronouncements they make, by some of the things and the actions they have taken. I think that the Texas has taken the wind out of my sail in the matter of whether the Speaker has the right, governed by law, and law here, either the Constitution or the standing orders, to suspend a member of Parliament. I think that the Texas has indicated that the Speaker has the right to do so. Of course, maybe one would expect that the Speaker would have engaged those members of Parliament before doing that, because when the thing happened, the Fiamoko is a very good friend of mine, and I know his temperament. I know the Fiamoko would not engage in some of the things that the impression is created. He went there to stop them from doing what they were doing. Yet still, we have not held a press conference to condemn the Speaker. The Fiamoko told me, "Nutal, I'm not happy," but then I respect the decision of the Speaker. In the first place, the MPP have issued a statement. I don't know whether you've seen the statement they issued this morning. Haven't held the press conference. They've also issued a statement.
And the minority caucus, rather.
Yes, the minority and the macro minority, actually. And the statement they have issued is targeting the Speaker of Parliament. In the first place, that statement, if you read it, is a complete lie. In the second place, it is made from the position of mischief to salvage the little credibility that is left for the NPP. And Afenyo seems to be the vanguard of that salvaging that credibility. And in the third place, it is meant to discredit the Speaker for the purposes of only God knows. Why? If you look at this, what the Speaker has done, and I want to look at it before looking at the detail of the issue. I've heard some so-called experts, and I say so-called because some of the pronouncements they have made on this issue is shocking to me, claimed that the Speaker is not a member of Parliament and therefore is not clothed with any power to take some of the decisions they take. And those people, I expect them to have gone through the standing orders of Parliament and also appreciated the Constitution of Ghana. One thing we need to understand, there cannot be Parliament without Speaker. In fact, the Constitution and the standing orders are all very clear. For business to commence, there must be a Speaker in sitting, whether the Speaker or any of his two deputies. Without the Speaker, you can't even have Parliament doing any job. So though he is not supposed to be a member of Parliament, but he plays a critical role as far as parliamentary proceedings are concerned. And I can understand my brother's frustration, and sometimes not only him, many people, because Parliament is supposed to be demonstrating some level of independence of thoughts and actions. The three arms of government that dictates how governance should go, particularly in a democracy, Parliament is even more important. And I tell people, in a military dictatorship, you still have the judiciary. They may have some challenges, but they exist. You have the executive, of course, if it is the military junta and his secretaries of whatever. But you cannot have Parliament. So Parliament is sine qua non to democratic governance. And that is why anytime there is a truncation of any democratic process, the first institution they dissolve is Parliament. So Parliament, the absence of Parliament means there will be the absence of democracy. But you can have a government without Parliament, but you cannot have democracy without Parliament. So we have a role. Now, many people, and I agree with Hamza when he said that sometimes the processes through which members of Parliament are elected, is also part of the problems that we have. And he went with some extreme position and said that the sanctions should extend to the political parties. I'm wondering how the sanctions could be extended to the political party. But Hamza, it's not only Parliament. You and I belong to NDC. there are many people who are in NDC, and some of them, unfortunately, who may be leading members of our party, either in parliament or in the political space, who don't even appreciate what social democracy is all about. And if you ask them to tell you, why are you an NDC person? He may not be able to tell you. That is why I was elated when the then national secretary, now the national chairman, indeed in one of our meetings said they were going to establish the social democratic school. And I remember some of us said that we are prepared to even teach in that school free, bono, without even taking any. And there were people. Senior Kwesi Pratt is a fantastic person who can even teach in that school. So that people would understand that I belong to this political party. I subscribe to this ideological position. I should be able to explain that to an ordinary man. Because many people associate themselves with the NDC or MPP because they believe in the ideology the party espouses. I have told people my grandfather was one of the founding fathers of the UP tradition, my maternal grandfather. But the more I read about the political history of this country, the more I distance myself from the UP, the Buiza Danko tradition and the MPP, because my appreciation of the ideological positions of the various political parties has created that opportunity for me to be able to decipher between what the NDC stands for and what the MPP stands for, and by so taking a decision that I have taken. I think it is very, very important we look into that. Monetization of our politics is a fact. I mean, clearly, maybe perhaps we should go beyond that and take a second look at our constitutional provision. The constitution is very clear, Article 44, as you mentioned, that anybody of sound mind and above 18 years, without any other condition, who determines the serenity of the mind. And when you made the statement, I was laughing, and I was so by extension, you are saying that Ghanaians are insane, because that's what you said. You said that the actions. You said, look, the Constitution says that anybody with sound mind,
yes,
that person must be sane.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And then they have elected people.
Yes.
And those people, if I'm not saying that is, if they are insane, it means that insane people have elected insane people to go and represent them. That's what it means.
No, you may not be far from the truth.
So what I'm simply saying is that in every profession, he's a lawyer. In the legal fraternity, you listen to some lawyers and you wonder how they became lawyers. In the media, you listen to some people and you wonder how they became media. So we would have that. That is not to say the entirety of Parliament. But you made a statement. You said that all of them, all members, you said all of them, all members of Parliament, indeed, they have all, purchased state properties. I have never.
No, I said
but that's what I said.
I didn't say
what
that.
did you say?
I said the ongoing vetting. It is appearing that from both sides they have acquired property.
Yeah, you said all.
No, I didn't say all.
I'll urge you to watch.
No. I said from both sides of the political divide, NDC and MPP, it appears that both sides are purchased from the state.
So that's
both sides does not mean all.
No, but anyway, I would.
You have not. You have a state land.
No.
So you cannot be part of it.
No, I was just trying to tell you.
Yes.
There are still members of Parliament who may not engage in some of the things we
and I made that point very.
Okay, that is besides the point. But I would urge you to watch the clip after this, and come next week and apologize to me. So what I'm simply saying is that there are some of those lectures, but let's come to the content, the issue at hand. I've heard people who have argued, and Afenyo Markins in their statement reiterated same, misleading argument that Mr. Speaker indeed presided over similar incidences, similar misconducts, and that he didn't take the action he has taken, and that he didn't take that neutral. I would urge you get the statement. That neutral and biased. He didn't take that biased position. How does the action of the speaker become biased when his directives includes or affect both NDC and MPP members? How does it become biased? And in any case, if you watch the videos and if you were there, you would come to one conclusion that Honorable Defiamapo did not even engage, didn't even start what he was rather preventing them from doing what they were engaged in. And yet, the speaker directed, we haven't held a press conference or issued a statement to condemn the speaker, because we still think that the sanctity of the legislative arm ought to be protected. That is what we still think. But you see, I can understand the anger and the frustration of NDC following across the country. I have had several text messages some of the text messages, they attack us, use one brush to paint all of that. Some they admonish you and urge you to talk to Honorable Ahenfo, talk to the leadership. You guys are so weak. But you see, I can understand the frustration. Now, what justification do you think we will have if we come and do exactly what the NDC did, the NPP did in the last government as a means of finding a remedy to this? Then what justification do you think we would have for the condemnation we had against the actions? And this arrogant folly led them to the past. And Afenyo is charting that same path. And so I can understand. Look, we have maintained, and I guess I reiterated same when we won the elections, that we are not going to railroad Parliament. And let me make a statement of fact. Anytime NPP under the Fourth Republic is in government, Parliament is always weakened. And don't take my words. Go and read the writings of Professor Nelson, Professor Isuman Johnson, Professor Jampo, many, in fact, CDDI. Go and read their writings. The weakest parliament we have ever had under the Fourth Republic happened under President Kufuor. Between 2000 to 2008, that was when Parliament was the weakest. As a matter of fact, recent publications of scholars in academia who have done some work as far as our parliamentary democracy is concerned have all come to one conclusion, that the 7th Parliament has joined that league of the weakest parliament we have had in this country. The 7th Parliament. Contrary to the view many people have, the 8th Parliament is still to be one of the strongest. So we have a responsibility as a party. And I was happy when, my brother made a point that, look, there is so much responsibility on the NDC because we are in government. Now, every conduct of NDC members, including members of Parliament, must be tailored towards the demeanor of His Excellency the President. And President himself has publicly stated that he won't allow any NDC member, whether a member of Parliament or a minister, to disrespect Ghanaians. Now, if the people of this country overwhelmingly gave him the mandate they did, must we come and do what the MPP did against us? Then where would be the difference? Now, against even NDC, the integrity of all of us as members of Parliament, look, I know Honorable Ahenfo. He's a very good friend, very sharp guy. But you see, there are members of Parliament who are even angry at him. They think that he should apply the doctrine of Machiavelli, that there should be war, so that people will appreciate the value of peace. But he has taken a different form. You know what the MPP have done repeatedly? The best they could do is to walk out when they disagree with any decision the MPP take. But you know why? They are not prepared to walk out. Because they know that we have the overwhelming numbers. If they walk out, business will continue. So they won't walk out. They will disrupt the process. That is criminal. That is illegal. Are you getting what I'm saying? Look, in the last elections, when we felt, uncomfortable or disagree with certain decisions by Parliament, even with the numbers at the time, and we felt that we did everything through every legal channel, and the speaker, or if you like, even the speaker or the first deputy speaker, refuses to listen to us, both in the 7th Parliament and the 8th Parliament, we do what is expected of us as a decent-minded group of legislature. We walk out. They are not willing to walk out because if they walk out, we still continue with the business of Parliament. So they stay to disrupt the process. It is also important, Senna, for us to understand one thing. You see, we represent the people of this country. And maybe perhaps some people don't appreciate what Parliament is all about. We are all representatives of the entirety of the people of this country. So I represent the people of Tamale Central. What it means is that they can't gather everybody in Tamale Central to come to Parliament to take a decision for and on their behalf. They must have a representative. So whatever action I take in Parliament must reflect the aspirations of the people I represent. And the reflection of the people I represent, to some extent, reflect the aspirations of the party I represent. Because 2 political parties or 3 or 4 political parties sold their message. The message of the NDC resonated with the people of Tamale Central. And they said, okay, MPP has a candidate. We disagree with the MPP's position. We disagree with their message. We are voting for you to represent us because the NDC's message resonates with us. So that is where sometimes the difficulty is people find the difficulty more difficult to decipher. People think that you are either representing the people or you are representing your political party. The scholars will tell you that you represent both. And the people, and that is why in some instances, you will find people voting for a parliamentary, a member of parliament, but not vote for the party. The independent members of parliament we have. So that is where that conflict is somewhat resolved. That the people disagree with the political party, but they agree with the position of the person who represents a political party. So you can find where the president will win in the presidential, vote, yet his member of parliament or his candidate wouldn't win. That time people then reduce it to just the message of the party, to the message or the character of the individual. So Senna, what they have done is just completely unacceptable. And I've heard some who compare what is being done to what happened on the night we elected the speaker. And this thing ought to be made very clear. What we did the very night we elected the speaker, we are enjoined to do that by the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The Constitution says, among others, that it is our responsibility to defend the Constitution, even if it means using violence to defend it. On that day, that very night, the Constitution and the standing orders are all very clear. That in an election of a speaker, the vote must be done through a secret ballot. The MPP, including Afenyo Markins, decided that they were going to disregard the constitutional provisions and the standing orders, insisting that it shouldn't be done through a secret ballot. And we said no. So we had, in fact, the Constitution was behind us. The standing orders was also behind us. But what did they do? They brought in armed military men into the chamber. Armed military men. That was a direct attack to the democracy parliament and the sanctity of the people, the aspirations of the people we represent. They brought armed military men. Now, the NDC people who are very angry, and I can understand their anger. Must we do same? Now, what they did, you think that we couldn't have also commandeered military men to come in there? What would have, how could people have seen the difference? We could have also done that. We could have also commandeered military men, because the Committee of Parliament is an extension of Parliament. But we didn't do that, because we are not supposed to do that. Anytime NDC is in government, our focus is not just the NDC, but we are looking at also the larger picture. And those who are angry, the posture we took, the fact that we stood firm in the defense of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana and what is right, for me, occasioned the overwhelming victory we had. If we had done what the MPP was doing, maybe we wouldn't have won the elections in the manner we have won. So we need to continue that way. And the people of this country will see the MPP for who they are. But you see, Afenyo Markins repeatedly disrespect the speaker. Repeatedly. I mean, he's my very good friend. Unfortunately, I have to say these things about him. Look, when he virtually insulted the speaker, everything and that arrogant folly led to his pass. And when we came back at the commencement of this parliament, he stood as the new minority, in fact, macro-minority leader, and said that, everything, he had an outstanding working relationship with the speaker. He even went ahead with a mischievous statement that we, those in the majority, were against the re-elections of the speaker. And I was happy the speaker himself made it very clear to him that is not the case. Now, he said all those things. That day, I said, this guy is pretending. This guy, even the committee, at the beginning of the vetting, the statements he made. So it is not about words. It is about deeds. It is about your action. And contrary to the perception some people had, that maybe he's now being humbled because the elections has actually humbled him. No, he's not. And it is not just Afenyo who is doing that. That conduct is approved by the party he represents. Because if the party never approved that conduct, I can tell you that they would have reined him in. But the party approves the conduct Afenyo Markins is having. Look, let me be very clear. They have taken our leniency to be our weakness. Mine is to plead and to appeal to the NDC following. We are not weak. Even when we were 137, they couldn't do anything. Now we are in fact, we have overwhelmed 2/3. Because if you look at the numbers we have and the 4 members of parliament who have agreed to sit with us and in voting, we can take any decision. But we are interested and particularly concerned about the perception out there. There were some people who neither belong to NDC nor MPP, but they voted for us. They voted for us to reset the country. So we need to demonstrate some level of patience. And that is what we are doing. But you see, there's a popular saying in the Gbani. You are lying on a bed with someone. You are on the side of the wall. And then the person is always asking you to shift. You are shifting until you get stuck to the wall. That time, if the person pushes you again, you can't. So what you do is that you also do what? You hook back. And we are getting to that. I pray we don't get to that. So I expect people to condemn, civil society organizations, to condemn the action of Honorable Afenyo Markins. My understanding of it is one, to unearth the potential competency of the person, particularly in reference to the ministry the person is being assigned. Also to test the temperament of the person, because you are coming to represent His Excellency the President and to lead Ghanaians. And I was happy when you said the person is an ambassador. A member of parliament is an ambassador, not just to his constituent, but to the entirety of this country. If you travel outside Ghana, they see you as a member of parliament. Your conduct and everything should reflect what people think that Ghanaians are. No, so when you engage in such acts, and you think that because you are in opposition, you can do anything and go scot-free, that is completely unacceptable. It has reached a stage that Ghanaians are now angry with us because they think that we have demonstrated so much softness and patience. I will still insist that we must not be tempted, because for all you know, that is the agenda. That is the agenda of the MPP. It's an agenda to salvage the little image, if there's anything that is left, credibility anyway, to salvage it. And they want to use us. One, to galvanize their base, and two, to gain some credibility. It must not detract us or His Excellency the President from researching the country and dealing with those who contributed directly or indirectly in creating the mess we are subjected to. How can you vet someone and you begin asking the person, where did you travel to? If there is any information that the person might have used state resources to do that, nobody has any problem at all with that. Now you have almost 1 hour banter between the ranking member and a nominee on his personal life. 1 hour banter. When we had information that some of us were going to be dealt with, we had that information that some of us are going to be dealt with. Now when you do this and you have information flying around, then people also come to the program with that premeditated, response, because he had information that these are the things you intend to do. So it also elicits a kind of response he will give to your questions, which will generate the kinds of things we have. I am happy that the Speaker directives includes that no single dime of the taxpayers' money will be spent in restoring the destroyed machines.
We need evidence of that.
No, I'm saying, I don't doubt. Look, some of us who have worked, I have disagreed with Honorable Bagman on countless times, but I can tell you, on principles, this man, they would have to use monies to. No, that one.
So what I see is believe it, feel it, that monies have been deducted, then we can go understand it. Is that like when you started and you told us about movement for change? Yes.
Then I tell you that I doubt it. I don't think you can do that. You won't be happy.
No problem.
I'll say you won't be happy. Yeah, I'm saying that let's see what happens. Maybe after the report is submitted.
Yes.
Because there ought to be a report. Yeah. And once the report is submitted, then the Speaker can then take, implementation of the decision. But distance, suspending. You see, the suspension of these people for me is so essential, because they are not just ordinary, they are leaders. They are leaders. You hear a leader who is saying that Montutu table no. Tutu table no. And he was visibly, I mean, Jerry, I was shocked. No, actually, he's been, raising and pushing tables. So it is the leadership. You remember in Parliament, just a week before this unfortunate incident, when we had the approval of the earlier ministerial nominees, they were shouting and making noise. We had the numbers to do business, but we were calm. We were calm because we didn't want to give them the opportunity to achieve what they intended to achieve. And that is why if it is becoming too much. But on the issue of people fighting in Parliament, even the US, Congress, and they have had that. But the question is, if it is incessant, that's where people will have problems with what is happening. So, Sana, I think that the conduct is just unacceptable, and I think something ought to be done about it. And the only way we can do that is when we all agree as a people that is not the part to charter, and the speaker's directives is that the committee, the appointment committee, the selection committee should look at the appointment committee. He's not saying that the appointment committee should be abandoned. I was happy when you said just to make amendment and adjustment. Your concern was that what is wrong with there is everything wrong. Laws are made by human beings for the good of human beings, and that is why you always have the opportunity to amend laws or even to entirely change laws. When we have that and we put it in practice, and some of these challenges have come, certainly there is the need for it to be reviewed. If for nothing at all, there are still ministers who are to be appointed or who are to be vetted, and there could still be appointment of people who have to go through the same process. So it is important we find solution to the problems we have now. And I think that the directive given by the speaker for me is right. Maybe perhaps the speaker could have engaged the affected members of Parliament. But when you have some members of Parliament who behave like children who are at the concrete operational stage of growth, those of us who do psychology, children who are that age, there are those when they see someone wearing a dress that looks like their parents' dress, they will cry and say that is for the mother. When you are watching TV, they will come and stand in front of the TV. That is precisely how some of our colleagues from the other side of the aisle are behaving, and it is most unfortunate.
Thank you very much. In fact, I expected your vetting to be longer, but it didn't happen as I anticipated. Anyway, because I had a list after the thing started that many of you, this man, that man, yeah.
And I was happy. And then when they walked away, Felix one, I went in and they hadn't, started his, and I had to go home. Felix was also one of those, they said that they would deal with us, me, Felix, Okujeto, Sam George, even Bois. Honorable Bois, that because of the statements he made, we've had a lot of rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh no, but he indicated to us that he did not apologize. Afenyomakin kept saying it.
I didn't hear him apologize, to be very honest. Wow.
Yeah. He said if...
No, I sat in halfway, honestly, of his
I think it's right. Because he said if it personally affected the president, he was not attacking his personality.
I mean, the way he
apologized.
I agree with
the former first lady should be the one who should even be apologizing to him.
Anyway, this is the statement issued by the Minority Caucus. It says, 1, the decision by the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Abang S.K. Bagbin on Friday, 31st January 2025, to suspend 3 distinguished members of Parliament of the New Patriotic Party, Honourable Frank Anodompre, Honourable Alassane Suleiman Atampoli, and Honourable Jerry Ahmed Shaib, is an unfortunate overreach of parliamentary authority, a blatant display of selective justice, and an attack on the democratic principles that underpin our legislative process.
Yes.
Yeah, only 3, yes. The events that transpired during the vetting of ministerial nominees were born out of deep-seated frustrations regarding the conduct of proceedings, the disregard for due process, and the majority's attempt to railroad decisions without consensus building. Parliament, by its very nature, is a form of robust debate and passionate deliberation. The unfortunate incident that led to minor property damage The unfortunate incident that led to minor property damage was not a planned disruption, but a manifestation of the growing tensions caused by the majority and their members and the failure of the chairman of the Appointments Committee to exercise impartiality. The Speaker's decision to unilaterally suspend these 3 MPs without due process in accordance with provision enshrined in Standing Orders 130A and B, without an opportunity for them to be heard under Article 19(1) of the Constitution, and without first exhausting internal disciplinary mechanism, sets a dangerous precedent. It signals an era where the Speaker can arbitrarily punish members of Parliament based on perceived disobedience rather than adherence to parliamentary rules and fairness. The Speaker himself has on numerous occasions presided over a Parliament where similar or worse incidents occurred, yet no such punitive measures were taken. The refusal to apply the same standard in previous instances makes this decision appear politically motivated, aimed at intimidating certain members of Parliament and silencing dissent. Then they continue. It is important to recall that during previous parliamentary chaos, particularly during the controversial 2021 Speaker election, at the public hearing on the nomination for presentation of 2 Supreme Court judges on the 30th July 2024, and brawl in Parliament over e-levy, where a member of the NDC physically assaulted a member of the majority caucus of the 8th Parliament, the Speaker adopted a reconciliatory approach at all instances. Why then does he choose at this moment to impose harsh and selective punishment? This inconsistency undermines his credibility as a neutral arbiter and exposes a worrying bias that must be called out. Furthermore, the Speaker's approach disregards the fact that Parliament is a house of debate, sometimes heated, and members have a duty to ensure that due process is followed. The Speaker's role is to facilitate dialogue and order, not to punish lawmakers for standing their ground in the face of procedural unfairness. We categorically reject the suspension of these 3 MPs and demand an immediate reversal of this politically charged decision. If this unjustifiable action is not addressed, it will set a precedent where the Speaker becomes an unchecked authority, weaponizing disciplinary measures against those who do not align with his preferred political narratives. Parliament must remain a bastion of democracy, not an institution of oppression. The Ghanaian people deserve a Parliament where all voices are heard, not one where members are punished for their commitment to due process and accountability. Democracy thrives on fairness and justice, and we will not sit idle while our parliamentary democracy is undermined by selective application of rules. So if you just join us, we are talking about the chaos at the vetting committee and the decisions that the Speaker has made. Comrade Pratt.
Some of the things that happen in Parliament are exceedingly troubling. I've seen in Parliament one parliamentarian land a very hefty slap on the face of another. I've seen in Parliament a member of Parliament grabbing ballot papers and chewing them, behaving like a rat, you understand? I've seen many things in Parliament that trouble me. But what happened last Thursday was completely unbelievable. Members of Parliament putting their chairs on a table, overturning tables, deliberately destroying microphones, charging at each other, and so on. Didn't look like a parliament to me. What happened on Thursday was the lowest of the low. And I was sitting back home and saying, so why would we wake up in the morning, queue, and vote for this? Why do we waste our time? What were the issues? they believed that the vetting of ministerial nominations and nominees should not continue, and that it should be adjourned until the next day. The majority side believed that it should continue. That's all. Indeed, if you're too tired to continue, just go home. Nobody stops you from going home. If you think that rules are being violated, make your protest. Vote against it. Walk away. I mean, this incredible behavior. And I saw one of them who was urging his colleagues, telling them what to do. Overturn the tables. He was saying in Cree, overturn the tables, and so on. Incredible. How can people like this carry the title of honorable? So shameful, so disgraceful, unbelievable. And what was the purpose of this? What did they aim at achieving with this childish, indisciplined, reckless, absolutely reckless behavior? And they want the speaker directs that they should pay for damaged property. Those who damage property say minor damage to public property. They actually issue a statement saying that this is minor damage to public property.
Yeah.
What?
Those mics are not cheap.
Minor damage to public property. Now, just imagine that other citizens, truck drivers, taxi drivers, workers in a factory had done this. What would have been the reaction? What would have been the reaction? There's the kind of thing which happen in secondary schools when children are protesting against the food they've been served with in the dining halls. Same behavior. And in those cases, the students are suspended, some are dismissed, and so on. Our members of parliament, honorable members of parliament, do it. And when they are panicking, they say, we only cause minor damage to state property. Minor damage to state property. Incredible. Unbelievable. I watched this horrible incident on television. And to be honest with you, I cannot understand why, is it Dafemoko?
Yes.
Yeah, has been suspended. I cannot. Because he was the victim of an attack. He didn't even respond. Innocent victim of an attack. So I'm just wondering why he was added onto the list. Now I've heard the minority statement. And the minority statement protests about the suspension of 3 of their own. And they leave out the favor pass for him. He can be suspended. Even though he didn't do anything, he can be suspended.
He's the roundup boy.
He didn't cause minor damage to state property. And so, what is this behavior? Incredible. I'm told that these minority people in parliament, minority MPs and so on, some of them have become stars in their political party. I think they believe that they're playing to the gallery. They think that they'll be held as well. My friend, I think the indications are that you have taken a vow to stay in opposition for a very long time. Because with this conduct, your micro status will be reduced to something smaller than micro. And I don't don't understand why they complain when they are called micro-minority. They get into tantrums. They want to fight because they're being referred to as micro. Your numbers have reduced from 137 to 80-something. How many? 80-something. In a parliament of 276 members, you have 80-something. And you're complaining about being referred to as micro. You get into tantrums as well. They are micro, my friend. They are a micro-minority. And in fact, their behavior will reduce their size. What is this? I can't believe what is happening. In any case, all of us are seeing them in action. And all of us will make our own judgments about their conduct. And I'm sure that the judgment of the Ghanaian people would not be a favorable one. I'm absolutely sure that they will be punished for this level of misconduct, clear misconduct. Why? If decisions are taken on the basis of allegiance to political parties and so on, there is no way the 80-something of you can affect any decision. No way. I mean, if you walk out, it's insignificant. In fact, the MDC, members of parliament, can decide to run a shift. It won't change anything. They can decide that half of us will come in the morning, half of us will come in the afternoon. It won't change anything. They can actually decide that for 1 week, half of us won't come. Only one half will come. They will win all the debates. They will win all the votes. And we are referred to as micro-minority. Say we are angry. We are not micro-minority. We are super minority. Go and win the votes in parliament with your 80-something. What is this rubbish? So now it's okay. Let's continue.
Thank you.
I just want to make a point, and I make this point seriously. I'm so very impressed that our brother, Honorable Mutala, came on the show today. And I say this with all honesty. I mean, Honorable Mutala has been with us on Alaji and Alaji for a very long time and has been one of the most loyal panelists, very loyal to the viewers and listeners of Alaji and Alaji. This is an exemplary character. People come here, they sit with us on this panel. As soon as they get small position, they abandon us. Small position, then they abandon us, and so on. And sometimes I wonder, they become ministers and they think that it is no longer worth engaging in these discussions on platforms like you see them on other platforms, but not this one. So for Honorable Mutala, for Comrade Mutala, who has not yet been approved, to have the courage to come and sit here and participate in this discussion and discuss these matters which occurred in Parliament, I think is exemplary. And I want to give him the red salute. And I want to hope that even after his approval, he will still be participating in this platform so that we can collectively be discussing issues that affect our country and the destiny of its people. Comrade, red salute to you.
In fact, I called you yesterday.
Yes.
When I called him, I was asking, now that they've not yet been approved, can you appear on the show? He said, no problem, he will come. In fact, it's one of the things that I like about you. When you're deputy minister for trade, deputy minister, you always made the point to be on the show whenever we called upon you. So, thank you. Thank you. It's true. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And your colleagues perhaps should learn a thing or two from you. I mean, they get small position. And then they forget.
When they go to opposition.
The staircase on which they climbed to get to where they got to. Small position.
Well, we have 30 minutes to do the one on the EC. So I was going to go through some of the comments, but I would like us to spend that 30 minutes. Okay, so let me, just a few. Especially those of you who are sending via text message, I usually don't read your messages. He said, Senator, please tell Solo that it wasn't free for all, as he said, for the majority. They were far behind time. Just imagine how many nominees they vetted yesterday and the time they closed. If you keep one person for 2 hours for score settling, instead of asking the relevant question, that's what the country suffers. Felix sent that from Alajo.
He's talking about the nominees yesterday.
Yes. After
it was free for.
After the minority.
We shouldn't go there.
After the minority boycotted.
Felix spent, and I like the questions posed by Mahama Yarga and then Anyafo himself. Probing questions. But the rest, it was free for all. Take it from me.
Ali Duin Tamale says Ghana seems to have.
When the minority was there.
Yes.
You didn't see one of the nominees being asked to sing his favorite song and he broke into an Amachi Dede song. You didn't see that. That was not free for all.
Oh, but the minority has also have their own challenges. I don't know if I've said that yet, but I think anyway.
Amachi Dede song.
No, not just Amachi Dede. Even Daddy Lumba. They asked someone to sing Daddy Lumba.
And we're very happy with that.
I wasn't happy with that.
So, minority being there or not being there, people were asked to sing Amachi Dede and Daddy Lumba
So you
songs.
really
Emily Du says, good morning. It says, good morning, Senna and the panel. Ghana seems to have regrettably an unprecedented gargantuan chunk of contemporary dishonest, cynical elite rather than the most desired lot of honest intellectual patriots. The fact of notoriety is most convincingly very evident usually in their misconduct and misbehavior of both the elected and appointed personnel in the immediate past and incumbent governments. Can such cynical display of disgusting episodic scenarios by the immediate past and incumbent regimes be the fault of the absurdity of the electors or the incumbent electoral commissioners of Ghana? Then there's Gabolo Isaiah Chwekam. He's joining us from EAG. Says it appears that the chairman of the committee is very weak in handling Afenyo marking. The chairman should go back and watch Joe Wise proceedings during vetting and the time given to Ato Forsen. Their plan is to disgrace Parliament as well as the nation Ghana. They want Ghana to have a bad name during JM's last tenure. There's Victor actually from Adafo, who says, in fact, it's unfortunate that these things are happening in our so-called Parliament. Afenyo marking should also be suspended together with his MPs. He caused all the chaos. All the hours he used asking the nominee unnecessary questions. Markins intentionally delayed this in order to not to attend to the others. Do they even consider the chiefs who followed the nominees? Then also this one from is it Asakiana says, if Afenyo Markins continue behaving this way, I doubt 2028 they may get 50 MPs in Parliament. She sent that, or he sent that from Tamale. This one says, my heartfelt congratulations to my brother, Honorable Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, for his appointment as Minister of MEST. As a man of integrity and foresight, I have no iota of doubt he will excel. I wish him well and God be with him. That's Dr. Cosmans who sent that on the show. There's this one's a congratulations to Honorable Murtala. Tell him his wife. This matter that caused confusion. Well, I mean, I was subsequently told that you don't compliment a man's wife in Islam. You don't do it. But I like the way you handled it because you understood that not everybody got it.
Suspension. You see, there are certain things you don't say. He said it and had no suspension.
There's anyone who says the so-called vetting is no longer credible. The pure interrogation is no more needed, but rather nominees should just go to Parliament to tell what they can do and be assessed and approved. Absolutely. Finito. That's Edmund's proposal. There's this one coming, says, good morning. Let me use this opportunity to say a good morning. Okay. The President, Senator, what transpired in Parliament last 2 days is unparliamentary and condemnable in no uncertain terms. It doesn't speak well of us as a country. Ghanaians are still angry about the past administration led by Nana Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. A new government just took office for less than a month now, and the NPP party starts playing those tactics in parliament just to create an impression that the NDC government led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has already started fading. I want to let them know that the eyes of Ghanaians are open more than that of an ego. So it's better they start working towards putting their party back in good position so that we can try them after some decades, but not under their current leadership. The more they keep Afenyomakin and the rest in their leadership positions, the more the number of years they will stay in opposition, because all that Afenyomakin, who is leader of the party in parliament, is doing and will continue to do would never yield any positive results from them. Thank you. That's from Moses Delano, inside my hometown of Sogakope. Thank you very much for sending in those comments. I have a lot more to go through, but we'll spend the next few minutes just going to just quick comments, very, very quick comment, brief, on the matter of the petition that has been put before the presidency for the removal of some 4 commissioners, including the 3 deputies. Let me start still with Hamza.
But before I run any commentary on that, permit me to dwell a little on the issue of the Speaker's powers when it comes to the suspension. You see,
very briefly.
Yes, my fear is that if we are not careful, we would be tempted to deal with the NPP, and at the end of the day, we open up the government for scrutiny and attack. That's my concern. And we must be seen holding to principles even now that we are in power. Nobody is questioning the power of the Speaker to be able to suspend members of Parliament. But all what we are saying is that if you have set up a committee, allow the committee some measure to work. Or even if you want to suspend others pending the work of the committee, let us be told that you have given them a hearing. If the Speaker had done so, I am pretty much convinced that he would have come to the realization that the Honorable Dafiamako did absolutely nothing wrong. And so he wouldn't have been added to these 3 guys who were actually seen destroying state property and misbehaving in the floor of Parliament. And so that is why I'm saying that we must be seen holding on to principles, no matter how uncomfortable it will be. We must. That is the only way the NDC would survive. And immediately we let our guns down, the goodwill begins to chip away, because we will be seen as a bunch of people who cannot stand straight when it comes to issues of principles. And so for me, that is my concern. And I thought that the Speaker could have handled it in another way. Because trust me, if we were in opposition, we would have raised concerns. One of the fundamental successes of the court case that the NDC, what's the name, secured after the presidential and parliamentary elections, that was handled by Ediju and Co., was largely on the basis of failure of the trial judge to give a hearing to the affected parliamentary candidates, irrespective of his perception. So if these were our arguments, we should not depart from it. I'm a member of the National Democratic Congress, a proud member of that for years. So I would be uncomfortable if we start sending signals that seeks to suggest that our government is ready to make some compromises, no matter how unsettling they are, largely because we want to score political goals. That is my discomfort, and that is why I feel that this could have been done in another way, and we would have come to the realization that the Fiamako is not part of it.
Okay.
Anyway, having said that, again, you see, the greatest challenge our government has is how to put our supporters in check. You see, if you are not careful, we will begin losing grounds by the conduct of our supporters. In all honesty, I am convinced with every fiber of energy within me that the Electoral Commissioner and her deputies must leave. But we must do so in accordance with the law and in a way that would attract public support. We should not, as a result of our overzealousness as NDC supporters, jump the gun and make it difficult for His Excellency to exercise that power by forwarding the petition to the appropriate courtesies. But you see, because if you present a very childish petition to the president, the teeming supporters out there would expect President Mahama to act on that childish petition. And President Mahama would find it very difficult, because knowing him, this is a gentleman who respects the laws of this country, who wants things done in a certain way. So knowing him, if your petition is weak and simply reading with political aspirations or desires, and you present such a petition to him, and he's left with no option than to reject the petition, you are opening him up for attacks by our support base. Because it would have suggested that even President Mahama is not ready and willing to ensure that we get the Electoral Commissioner and his deputies out of office. And for me, that is my difficulty. And when I was reading the petition, as a student of law, these were my disappointments. Why are we in a haste to make it difficult for the president to act, or to open him up for attacks? We all have our concerns. I don't think that it is only the NDC that has concerns about the way the 3 electoral commissioners have conducted themselves over the years. A working political party with an appreciation of political decision making should be able to go underground, reach out, speak to people, have a very concrete petition before His Excellency the President, so that based on such a concrete petition, he can act and be guided, so that those decisions at the end of the day can be defended. You see, you may say whatever you like about the removal of Charlotte Osei. Go back and read the petition that was presented by the NPP's very own Maxwell Opoku Ajima, because he was even appointed as member of the Baumel government's committee, committee on governance for the election, 2024 election. So he's a known NPP person. But you see, regardless of how you disagree with him, if you read the petition, you may have your doubts. Charlotte Osei responded to them beautifully. But at least the president would have had something to still go ahead to pursue his political vindictive agenda. And that's why Nanado did what he did. But you don't put 2-3 sentences together. Put President Mahama in a fix, expectedly, because knowing him, when he reads it and he doesn't make sense to him, he's going to throw it off. And immediately he does that, you are opening him up to attacks by his own party people. Then the confidence begins to go down. And for me, these are the things I'm worried about. And that's why I'm saying that, look, if we are not careful, it is the same NDC foot soldiers who fought for this victory who will take us back into opposition. We must hold our horses. We must be careful. We must demonstrate that this is a political party that has a working strategy. You simply cannot sleep and then wake up on the wrong side of your bed and present a petition that is flawed, because I have read it, that has no basis, and expect President Mahama to act on it. And he fails to act, and our foot soldiers will go after him. Why the needless setting of traps? Why are we doing this to ourselves? So, Senor, I do not expect anything to come from it, but convinced, I'm here. I am so convinced that we have never had an incompetent electoral commission, a biased electoral commission, than those managing the affairs of our current electoral commission. And personally, I will be hugely disappointed in President Mahama's government and the National Democratic Congress if we fail to reset that particular institution. And the only way to reset it is to wipe the state clean, that slate clean. You see, I have always argued that the National Democratic Congress laid the bedrock for stability as far as our democracy is concerned. Look at the nature of the appointments the NDC made since 92. As far as the Electoral Commission is concerned, from Dr. Afarijan, how he discharged himself to Charlotte Osei, but they still found ways of taking Charlotte out. But look at the 3 musketeers that are presented to us. In some cases, card-bearing members of the National Democratic Congress, TESCON patrons, are now manning our Electoral Commission. So clearly, any president or party that won an election on the ground, on the leg of reset, must be interested in resetting that institution because Ghanaians expect it. We must demonstrate that we are ready to reset it and put it back on track. And any reset, as far as the institution is concerned, would not be complete if we do not get out Charlotte Osei and her deputies. But we must be careful. We must be careful. Not in the process of doing that, not to open our president up for attacks. Okay. And as far as this current petition is concerned, I hate to break it to many of our foot soldiers who are listening today. I do know, knowing the President Mahama, I know it will be difficult for His Excellency President Mahama to act on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is from Davi Sena says, I honestly don't think Roxanne did anything wrong except that as a majority chief we needed to show leadership for his side at this critical time. Even if he was to be punished for doing so, he should be suspended for only 1 week and not bear the same brunt of punishment for his colleague who actually instigated the violence and destruction of state property in the committee room. That is coming from Davi Sena, who sent that comment. There's Musa Batwa, who is joining, says the Speaker's decision to direct a 7-member committee to commence a full criminal investigation, suspend the 4 MPs from the vetting committee is a step in the right direction. The vetting process, particularly the conduct of a micro-minority, has raised concerns about fairness, as the PSM members have allowed personal biases to influence their judgment of certain nominees. This move will help restore credibility, ensure impartiality, and uphold the integrity of the vetting process. And last one, that is, I think this is from Stephen Penn, who says, my congratulations to Comrade Mutala for his deserved appointment to serve Mother Ghana. Senna Afenyomakin should have been suspended as well. He started the Hula Balu with his open insult and threats of the clerk of the appointment committee. The entire members of the appointment committee have an agenda of making Ghana ungovernable. Afenyomakin's line of questioning of some appointees amount to settling personal score, and that must be condemned without reservation. Mr. Wusu?
Yes, let me start from where the last is, the comments he made to say that the Speaker has said he's going to conduct an investigation. The investigation must, as it were, veer into whether or not the clerk of parliament to that committee, appointment committee, is indeed an NDC member, a partisan clerk. If the outcome turns out not to be true, then the minority must unreservedly apologize to the lady, because I believe that she has been abused. Yeah. I don't see anything that the clerk did or has done that shows that she's a partisan person, but investigation must be conducted to establish the otherwise of it. And if it turns out that she's a partisan clerk, then I'll have a problem, because she's there to serve the interests of this country. But if it turns out that she's just doing her normal business, then the minority must be taken on. I will lead that onslaught. Again, there was something interesting that came out of the vetting. During St. George's vetting, Afenyo made us to understand that St. George was a member of TESCOM, has been a former member of TESCOM, based on a report that was submitted to the committee by the state apparatus. St. George says otherwise. So if it is true that indeed St. George has never been a member of TESCOM, then why did the state apparatus? Then we must go back and investigate the state apparatus, because then we cannot rely on any of the reports. Did they fabricate any report? They must come and explain to us, so that all of us will be on the same page. I believe that this electoral commissioner, you see, just like how the governor of Bank of Ghana has proceeded on leave, Jane Mensah does not need any petition. She must just respect herself and then tender in her resignation. That is what civilized people do. And you don't need anybody. I don't want us to go on that tangent. As we speak, Ablekuma North, a single constituency, is outstanding. What else do you need to tender in your resignation? Sometimes, I don't know whether this country, we are cursed that the decision by leaders of institutions to resign is not part of our culture. When it's so clear that you have to resign, you don't need me. Look, under Article 44(2), what does it say? What was it? The chairman of the Electoral Commission shall have the same terms and conditions of service as a Justice of the Supreme Court of the Justice of the Court of Appeal. Now, when you come to 45 and read about the functions of the Electoral Commission, 45D says what? Or 45B says to demarcate the electoral boundaries for both national and local government elections. Under the watch of Jane Mensah, sir, people of Santoville, Akpafu, Lepe, Lolobi, they were denied voting in parliamentary elections because of demarcation. Now you come to Article 146, it tells you that the Electoral Commissioner has the same terms as the Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeal. And how do we remove Justice of Court of Appeal? Incompetence is part of it. If you were not able to demarcate a constituency for which reason people could not vote in a parliamentary election, does it not amount to incompetence? Do you need me to come and tell you that Jane Adoko Mensah vamos? It must be automatic. I'm even surprised. You know, one of my difficulties is how he accepted the appointment from Akufo-Addo. It's not some lack of integrity. Because you have been communicating. When I used to be in the MPP, we were communicating together. Hey, now MPP members are going to be referees in matches involving Movement for Change, MPP, NDC, and so on. Mind you, we are coming back in 2028. Make no mistake. So Apiahini should have by now left that office and then begin to take communication directorship at the New Patriotic Party, because now the party seems to be going down very fast. As for Bossman, the accusations are one too many. Together with Tete. Tete told us that there had been animals and trees as part of our register in the past. And if you that registered people or put names in the register is telling us you managed to put animals and trees there, what business do you have there? It comes back to incompetence. So for me, I don't think anybody must petition anybody. We must impress upon them for them to they themselves to leave. Look, there is an establishment, an institution, NASIA, what's the name? National Schools Inspectorate Division. That woman, I don't know why she's at post. This woman is going about taking state properties, and I don't know. The union over there have been complaining. This government, as though you are not in charge. Immediately, she proceeds on leave. Do not be afraid to take that critical decision. Ghanaians have entrusted the destiny of this country to your hands for only 4 years. You can multiply 365 days by 4. We will go back to the people. We will also go and sell our message. Mind you, we went to the people of this country with our great transformational plan. We have given you a copy. They did not buy it. They bought your 24-hour economy, which has several promises there, and we will hold you by the very promises you gave to us. I don't know if you deliver, so be it, I'll be okay. If you deliver, stop politics. If you don't deliver, I'm in politics. And the reason why you are in power is that the MPP failed to deliver. Is that not the case? Every reserve player wants the other one to fail so that we come in. But in our case, we want you to succeed. But if you decide yourself to fail, we will come in. So, Jane Mensah and her people and the squad said, I don't know, let's entertain some of these things. We must bring pressure to bear so that they go their way. They shouldn't make the work of this country so difficult. Let's get people who are ready to work for the state, the interest of this state. On their score, the Ablekumanov situation alone, they have no business being there. As we speak, they don't have representation. The returning officer told us that he was done. He was not going to be. And he left away.
And so, the battle of Saul.
Yeah, sure.
See, so when I read the petition, and that's where my disappointment came from.
Nobody needs to petition, but they should run away.
Thank you.
You get my point? So that we will save this country. And in running away, we get a neutral person. And mind you, when you get that neutral person, there are still outstanding issues with the register. Issues that we had with the register must not be lost on us. Many a times, and what happens is that we will make noise in opposition. But when we get the opportunity to come to power, instead of doing the very things that we were complaining of, then we sit back. Now that the MPP is in opposition, you watch, they will come and complain about the register. Meanwhile, they have been going to IPAC meetings and defending this register. Let's get the right personnel and we will be fine. So I'm not for Jane Adoko Mensah. She knows she has never been married. This woman was going to take out the ink. Remember?
Ink, yeah. We
had to fight. Pusiga, he said the register was so robust. That word became so rampant. Robust. The time we realized 38 people have been transferred from Tamale Central, maybe they would have gotten more votes. And maybe they even transferred more before it became evident. From Tamale Central, from Sanregu to Pusiga. Why must you be at post when all these things are happening?
Thank you.
And your government must prosecute those electoral officers who caused the transfer. You see, when you do this, it sanitizes the system. Where is that guy?
Comrade. Thank you.
We don't have much time, and I think that the two earlier speakers have done justice to it. Just to add that some of us raised concerns about the appointment of Jane Mensah. She was not only an activist of the NPP, she is a family member of the former First Lady. And I remember I sat on this program and other programs and stated publicly that Jane Mensah was a family member of Rebecca Akufo-Addo. And I remember my senior comrade Kweku Baku sat on Good Morning Ghana and Newsfile and said I was lying. But he knew that he was lying because he knew the truth. I don't think that it escaped him. Only for it to be proven in open court at the election petition that she was a family member to Rebecca Akufo-Addo. So you make such a person the leader of those responsible to manage our electoral processes in this country. 2, Dr. Bosman Asare was about my 2 years senior. I remember those who know the University of Ghana, political science department and psychology department are all on the same compound. He had finished, I was a teaching assistant at the psychology department at that time, and he was a known TESCON person. When I went back to the department to do my PhD, he was the head of the department, he was the patron for what's the name? TESCON. So a very known MPP activist. And you have the other gentleman, Tuahene, who was the communicator of the NPP. He made the person a manager of our electoral processes. Tete, pretentiously, as if she was neutral. But he was neutral, but he wasn't. I can understand my brother's position and admonishing us to do things that are right and the defects he has identified in the petition seeking the removal of this MPP activist. The petition that they used to remove Charlotte was more defective than this. Look, the basic requirements of a petition is that there must be persons or a person behind that petition. All along, we never knew those who were behind the petition. More so a petition that requires the removal of a electoral commission. It got to the 11th hour that we were told that this was the person behind it was not even signed. The date was wrong. They had to come back to the extent that when they sent the petition to the presidency referred the petition back for them to do necessary corrections. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. You sent a defective petition. That should have been the end. It is not the responsibility of the presidency to call the people to ask them to do the right things on the petition submitted. That was what the presidency asked them to do. So you can tell the state was bent on having Charlotte Osei removed. But if I petitioned that removed Solomon Kansa and they brought it and it didn't meet the requirements of a petition, I'll just throw it in the nearest dustbin. But you would call me to come and then do the necessary corrections in the petition. At the time when they called, they had informed us that they referred the petition to the Council of States to look into. So they referred a defective petition to the Council of States as to whether they actually sat on it and gave a decision. We still do not know. But I can understand you think that we must do things differently. But I'm saying that they were bent. They were bent on getting. I'm just talking about. They were bent on getting that. But of course, we must do things differently. I'm aware that there was already a petition, not only against the Electoral Commission, against even the Chief Justice. But Professor Azar, what has happened? What has happened to that? What has happened to?
There was no prima facie.
So I'm saying that. Oh well, fine. I think that there could be petition.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, they can be petitioning.
I was shocked, and I remember on Tuesday, the day the declaration was it on Tuesday or Monday?
It was
in fact, I said I was flabbergasted that the woman was still at post. And my thinking was that after declaring, the woman would have to go. All of them will have to go, and they are still at post. And I said, whether they resign or they should be forced to jump.
Of course.
Because they have demonstrated crass, gross incompetence. So it's a classical example. A whole constituency and the people, human beings, they never had representation for 4 years. For 4 years, they never had representation. What is more incompetence than this? All the challenges we have had with regards to these elections and the fact that we still have a constituency, the people do not know their left from their right, do not know who represents their aspirations, they do not know who represents them. This woman and Dr. Bosman Asare, my lecturer, Dr. Bosman Asare and those people, I mean, do you need Archimedes to rise from his tomb to tell you that they are incompetent? Now you have the same Electoral Commission that declared election results 7 times. The 2020, 7 times. And they still do not know the actual figures. I think it's enough. Frankly speaking, I'm aware that one of them is trying to seek amnesty somewhere. For what crime? I'm aware. Look, these people should not only be made to jump, they should be prosecuted for procurement breaches. Procurement breaches. And the properties they have amassed within the 8 years, they will tell the people of this country how they came by those properties. And so it is not about just asking them to go or they petition against them or they resign. They should be prosecuted. If they ever took a dime from the state or engaged in any procurement breaches, they should be made to face the full rigors of it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think we are entitled to look at the petition and to come to conclusions, various conclusions. We may come to conclusions that it is incompetent, it is frivolous, and so on. That does not take away the right of every citizen to seek the removal of the Electoral Commission or any other person occupying a position in a state institution. Okay? So, we are not the people to determine whether the petition has merit or does not have merit. There's a process for determining that. And indeed, the Nana Akufo-Addo's administration made us aware that the presidency is just a post box. And then once such a petition gets to it, it has to push it. And so on.
Conveyor belt.
Conveyor belt. Mm. So we expect the conveyor belt to act as a conveyor belt. That's all. And the appropriate authorities will determine whether the members of the commission should stay in office or should not stay in office. I mean, I was shocked when the president decided to appoint a card-bearing member onto the commission. And I was even more shocked that all the institutions of states and so on refused to pay any attention to the protest, that sprang up as a result of that reckless appointment. We are all waiting to see what the outcome will be. Finish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we have to bring our discussions to a close.
Just also to announce that on Thursday, the Socialist Movement of Ghana would organize a night of tributes for Dr. David Percy, who passed away about a week ago. The night of tributes will be held at the Freedom Center in Kokomemble on Kotoko Avenue in Kokomemble, and it will start next Thursday at 5 p.m. So all comrades, friends, this coming Thursday are invited to join the night of tributes for Dr. David Percy.
You don't know the freedom, any number that no, it's not everyone that
Freedom Center is very popular.
No, it's not that popular to the right-wing politicians. Except those who have now moved.
Dr. Percy has a lot of followers. The people we want to come from.
Dr. Percy
was
deep.
It's not like the teachers' hall. It's a place which takes up to 60 people.
Have you seen Joy FM?
No, I know that. It's not for me.
I think he knows. You know exactly where Freedom Center is.
Actually, I have done
the whole overhead, a circle. When you are coming down,
it's not for me.
I'm talking to those.
These days, it's so simple. Google Freedom Center.
Freedom Center.
Avenue, Kokomemble, it will bring you. There's no problem.
Especially when you get to circle and then you just put it in there. It will take you right there. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for making time to join us on the show today. Before I leave, condolences to Apostle Dr. Jacob Tete, who is General Overseer of the Divine Signature Outreach Ministry. You lost your mom, and of course on 12 February 2025, you're doing a service in her honor. Condolences to you and the entire family. And let's say a big thank you to Kwame Kwesi Prajini, I was General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And of course, always exciting to see Solomon also in the morning. He's a member of the Movement for Change. And we were privileged to be honored by the presence, I know he doesn't like those words being used to describe him, of the Minister Designate for Environment, Science and Technology, none other by Comrade Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, who is Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Comrade, we wish you all the best. We wish you all the best. And of course, I know we'll continue to see you here. Of course. Yes, as always. Yes. But we wish you all the best at the new ministry. Interesting how you demonstrated an understanding of that. I was watching, I was like, when did you start working on environment? He did. Yes, it was very, and it was exceptional performances for many of the persons who were nominated on the matter of understanding their ministries anyway. Well, Hamza, nice to see you once again. Hamza Sweeney is a private legal practitioner, certified to practice both here and in the UK, member of the NDC. And that's our panel for today. A big thank you to you who sent in those comments. Who sent in the comments. And of course, it's always a pleasure going through your comments and and I like it when you share your thoughts with us. Well, we are back same time next week with another edition of the show from the crew here at Pan-African Television, at Radio Gold, and myself, and the many affiliates across the country. We say a big thank you to you, and we'll see you soon.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored,